Chapter 988. 2 days later, the Shura vulture's mental strength had completely recovered. Then, the shadow of the Legion of Doom went south again. Tens of thousands of war beasts, tens of millions of doomsday barbarian soldiers, and millions of doomsday barbarian cavalry. Thousands of dark dragons, hundreds of dark dragons, dozens of destruction earth dragons, and burrowing demon dragons. They went south from Beiping City in a mighty manner. They blotted out the sky and covered the earth. Wherever the army passed, there was no light at all. Everything was turned into ruins. Moreover, the roads of the land of chaos could not accommodate such an astronomical number of Legion of Doom. There were trees, houses, castles, and rivers that blocked the path of the Legion of Doom. And the Legion of Doom's method was to completely crush them. The dark demon dragon that was tens of thousands of meters long rolled its incomparably huge body, destroying all obstacles and crushing them into flat ground. Whether it was villages, towns, forests, or rivers, they were all crushed into countless flat ground. Therefore, this was a complete army of destruction. Wherever they went, everything there would be completely destroyed. The news of the Legion of Doom heading south immediately reached Great Cloud Sky City. Although they sighed, it had been 17 days since the fall of Beiping City. This time was much longer than they had expected. Moreover, because all the secret factories had exhausted all their resources. Therefore, hundreds of destruction-level bombs and missiles had been produced. To be precise, 378 of them had been produced. Moreover, the daily production capacity had increased to 40. The Armageddon Legion can travel 2,000 miles a day. They will reach Great Cloud Sky City in less than 3 days, Qin Huayu said. Dongfang Minmi said, "We can't let the Legion of Doom besiege the city. We must try our best to obstruct the Legion of Doom's southward footsteps." Everyone nodded. The scene in Beiping City had left a deep impression. Almost in an instant, the entire Legion of Doom destroyed the entire city. Once the Legion of Doom besieged the city, the entire city would fall in at most 4 hours. Dongfang Minmi said, "Therefore, I suggest that all the Infinite Grandmasters form a team and launch an air attack on the Legion of Doom with destructive bombs." The Mermaid Queen Violet said, "Although the Shura vulture is incomparably heaven-defying, her spiritual power will eventually be exhausted. Furthermore, she would definitely be willing to cooperate and exhaust her spiritual energy. As long as her spirit is exhausted, the Legion of Doom will stop." Everyone nodded in agreement. Soon, a team made up entirely of limitless martial grandmasters was formed. Among them, the 3 advanced martial grandmasters from the Sea of Nether had also successfully advanced to infinity martial grandmasters because they had been bestowed with energy essences. As for the Council of Light, there were nearly 10 limitless great grandmasters. There was also Bo Lu, Yaozi, Awen, and Awu, the 4 demon foxes. In addition, there were nearly 300 experts from the Mermaid Empire. In total, there were a total of 315 limitless great grandmasters and above. Without a doubt, this lineup was incomparably magnificent. It had already surpassed the martial strength of the Temple of Annihilation. However, the evil spirit warriors of the Temple of Annihilation had immortal bodies and were almost invincible. Fighting with them was completely meaningless. These over 300 top-notch martial arts legions carried 200 destructive bombs and countless other huge bombs. They formed a complete formation and flew towards the north in a mighty manner. After just a few hours of flight, they saw the Legion of Doom like a black cloud. The Legion of Doom that spanned hundreds of miles was really like a demon from hell, destroying everything on the ground. After Dongfang Minmi saw it, he immediately felt his heart bleeding. The entire land of chaos was originally a paradise of evil. After being governed by the Council of Light, it had become a paradise on earth. How many castles, how many towns, how many villages? They were all the painstaking efforts of the Council of Light. They were all built brick by brick. Now they had completely turned into ruins. This was the Legion of Doom. The disgusting Legion of Doom only knew how to destroy and not build. Thus, he allowed Demon King Wen Tian to speak his reasoning to the heavens. The world-exterminating legion was evil. They all deserved to die. They all deserved to enter hell. Soon, More than 300 top-notch martial artists and tens of millions of Legion of Doom clashed in close combat. The Mermaid Queen Violets led more than a dozen saint-level powerhouses. Once again, they took out destructive bombs and unfreezing water, and blew off the heads of the dark dragons, killing them. And the Shura Vulture once again easily resurrected these dark dragons. As for the remaining 300 limitless Great Grandmasters, they threw ordinary huge bombs at the Legion of Doom on the ground. These limitless Great Grandmasters' ability to carry weight was much stronger than the Demon Vultures. Although the bombs thrown down were not as powerful as the destructive bombs, they used the previous generation's formula. However, they won in terms of gravity, and were all bombs of more than a few tons. Whoosh 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 whoosh, hundreds of tons of bombs were thrown down at a time. Boom 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 boom. In an instant, countless Legion of Doom were completely blown up and killed. Countless World Destruction Barbarian Cavalry and World Destruction Barbarian Army were smashed into pieces. But in the blink of an eye, the Shura Vulture once again easily condensed all their shattered energy and resurrected them on the spot. The Shura Vulture once again became the absolute protagonist of the battlefield. Once again, it carried out an incomparably gorgeous performance. The destruction continued. One by one, the dark dragons' heads were smashed into pieces, but they were resurrected in the blink of an eye. Thousands and tens of thousands of World Destruction Barbarian Army were smashed into pieces, but in the blink of an eye, they were resurrected again. Soon, all the destructive bombs and giant bombs of the top-notch martial artists were exhausted. Then, this martial artist army of more than 300 people retreated at full speed. And the Legion of Doom was unscathed after a great battle. All the casualties were resurrected by the Shura Vulture on the spot. However, her spiritual power was a little shaky. The Queen Devil Queen ordered her to immediately recover her spiritual power, because soon the second round of attacks from the human countries would arrive. Sure enough, in less than 2 hours, the top-notch martial artist army of the human countries appeared once again, bringing hundreds of destructive bombs and countless giant bombs. Once again, they launched an earth-shattering attack on the Legion of Doom. Thus, the Vulture once again carried out an incomparably stunning performance. Resurrect every dark colossal dragon and Armageddon Legion on the battlefield. The second round of attacks lasted for nearly an hour. The top-notch martial artist army of the Council of Light, the Legion of Doom, lost more than hundreds of thousands of troops. Of course, they were soon resurrected on the spot by the Shura Vulture again. And the Vulture finally exhausted its spiritual power again. Its face was extremely pale, and its entire body was on the verge of collapse. The Queen Devil Queen shouted that something was wrong and immediately ordered, "Stop! Otherwise, if the Shura Vulture overdrew its spiritual power again and fainted for more than 10 days, it would be troublesome." Coincidentally, the top-notch martial artist army of the human countries had once again exhausted all its bombs and mystic chi. Once again they all retreated. Because the Shura Vulture had exhausted its spiritual power, it needed 2 days to fully recover. Therefore, the Legion of Doom had no choice but to stop again. And this place was still thousands of miles away from Cloud Sky City. At this moment, the Queen Devil Queen was furious. Previously, whether it was the Queen Devil Queen or the Demon King Wentian, neither of them took the Mermaid Queen's allegiance to Yang Dingtian to heart. Wasn't it just a dozen half-sages and a few hundred infinite grandmasters? Although this group of martial artists was very powerful, they couldn't kill the evil warriors of the Empire of Darkness. They couldn't destroy the Legion of Doom. Even if all the martial artists exhausted all their mystic chi, they could only kill a few dark dragons at most. The Shura Vulture could revive with its eyes closed. However, these martial artists above the unbounded level and the destructive bombs of the human countries complemented each other perfectly. They had the tools to release the destructive bombs. And those top-notch martial artists also had the energy to destroy the dark dragons in an instant. Yang Dingtian was really amazing. He actually got the help of a prehistoric empire and hundreds of experts just to sleep with a woman. The Queen Devil Queen really didn't expect that this group of martial artists would cause so much trouble for the Legion of Doom. However, it was obvious that the real trouble had yet to come. Because only 4 hours later, this group of top-notch martial artists came again. They also brought dozens of newly produced annihilation bombs and countless giant bombs. Although there were only 100 or so martial artists in this group, but it was still not something that the evil warriors of the evil ways could defeat. This group of experts from the human countries once again played the same trick. They smashed the dark dragon's head with unfreezing water, and then drilled the destructive bombs into the dark dragon's head 1,000 meters deep. Then they detonated it. Now this group of experts was already very crafty. Previously, they needed 2 destructive bombs to destroy a dark colossal dragon. Now that they had found the right depth and location, a single destructive bomb could destroy a dark colossal dragon. Therefore, the Shura vulture, who had just recovered 4 hours of mental strength, had no choice but to take action again to revive the dark dragon. There were also countless Legion of Doom that had been killed by the explosion. However, in less than 15 minutes, she was on the verge of collapse again, and was about to overdraw her mental strength. The Devil Queen was shocked and said, "Ignore the Legion of Doom and focus on reviving the dark dragon." Even so, the Shura vulture still exhausted her mental strength. Although most of the destroyed dark colossal dragons had been revived, there were still 5 dark colossal dragons that had been completely shattered. The Shura vulture had to adjust her breathing again to recover her mental strength. However, just over an hour later, the team of top human martial arts experts had once again launched an attack. This group of top martial arts experts became very sneaky. They didn't use chi to attack at all. They directly dropped bombs and left after throwing them, saving as much chi as possible. Because if they didn't use chi gathering pills, it would take at least a few hours to recover their combat chi. Although the subsequent attacks brought fewer and fewer destructive bombs. But every time, he had to destroy the dark dragon. Therefore, the vulture, who had recovered a little of her mental strength, had to exhaust her mental strength to revive those dark dragons. As for the Legion of Doom that was constantly being destroyed, she couldn't care less. The next day at dawn, finally, the attacks of the human martial arts army temporarily stopped. And the entire Legion of Doom didn't advance half a step for half a day and a night. They had lost 9 dark dragons. The Legion of Doom lost more than 1 million. A full 6 hours passed. The Shura vulture finally recovered a lot of her mental strength. Just when the Devil Queen felt that the martial arts army of the human countries wouldn't attack again in the short term, they were here again. This time, they brought 20 destructive bombs. There were also countless giant bombs with astronomical numbers. Thus, the crazy attacks began once again. The Shura vulture had to revive the dark dragon again, and exhausted all the mental strength that she had gathered with great difficulty. On the other hand, the Annihilation Legion on the ground was once again annihilated. After the attack, this group of top martial arts army retreated calmly again. However, only 2 hours later they came again. However, the destructive bombs must have been used up. This time, the Council of Light changed their method. It directly made an ordinary bomb into an incomparably huge one. Thus, super huge bombs that weighed more than 100 tons appeared. Such a huge bomb was buried in the depths of the dark dragon's head and detonated suddenly. It was still an earth-shattering explosion. Although it couldn't kill the dark dragon, it couldn't blow off its head. However, it was enough to make it lose control. After being blown up, the dark dragon seemed to have lost control and kept spinning in the air. Thus, the Shura vulture had to expend her mental strength again to completely recover them. On the ground, countless Legion of Doom were destroyed, but it was completely useless. Just like that, there seemed to be a happy reversal on the battlefield. The Legion of Doom, which was originally insufferably arrogant and had destroyed the entire Beiping city in a short period of time, had been blocked here by the human countries for 2 days and 2 nights, unable to take a step forward. The top martial arts army of the human countries attacked crazily, wave after wave, without stopping at all, and the mental strength of the Shura vulture had no chance to recover at all. Her complexion was still pale, and she was on the verge of collapsing. The human countries had let go of the defense of the city and changed another way of fighting. They had actually gained the absolute initiative in an instant. Therefore, the Legion of Doom was in tragedy. The Devil Queen was also in tragedy. They were extremely aggrieved in this battle. This kind of crazy harassment and attack lasted for 5 days and 5 nights. The Legion of Doom was still moving south inch by inch. The human countries were fighting more and more confidently. When the battle report reached the central continent, the number of rebellions there had also decreased greatly. The south of the Sunset Mountains was finally no longer in a state of panic. Finally, 8 days passed. The Devil Queen and the Evil Spirit Legion were shocked to discover their entire ground army had been wiped out. Countless battle beasts had also been destroyed. There were only a few thousand Dark Owl dragons and a few dozen Dark Colossal dragons left. The Devil Queen almost vomited blood. Looking at the pale Shura vulture, she gritted her teeth and said, "Let's go back to the Empire of Darkness." Then, she looked angrily in the direction of Great Cloud Sky City and said coldly, "You refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit. Next time, I will bring hundreds of millions of Legion of Doom and wipe out the entire human countries." Chapter 989. Since the outbreak of the Doomsday War, everything that happened was beyond the expectations of many people. Whether it was victory or defeat, it was all unexpected. But in short, the current result was much better than expected. Before the war, the entire Council of Light's upper echelons were extremely pessimistic. Everyone deeply felt that the entire human kingdom, the entire Council of Light Corps, should not have the slightest ability to fight back in front of the Legion of Doom. Who knew that after the war, even though the soldiers and cities of the human kingdom were still incomparably fragile, the Legion of Doom could easily destroy them. But the Council of Light's brand new crystal weapon civilization name was more powerful than expected. Especially in recent days and nights, the Council of Light was actually suppressing the Legion of Doom. In the end, almost all of the ground troops of the Legion of Doom were defeated, forcing the Queen Devil Queen to return to the Empire of Darkness dejectedly. Of course, no one would think that the Queen Devil Queen would give up just like that. Therefore, when she led the Legion of Doom back to the Empire of Darkness, the entire Council of Light's upper echelons only had a deep weight in their hearts, and there was even a faint fear in their hearts. Obviously, when the Queen Devil Queen returned to the world again, it would be a disaster. Perhaps it would really be a complete disaster, or even the end of the world. After returning to the Empire of Darkness, the Demon King Wentian was no longer in the Celestial Palace. He did not care about the Doomsday War at all. Currently, there was only one thing that was most important in his eyes, and that was to find the Naga Shuang. Of course, if he was here, he would definitely express extreme surprise at the current situation of the Doomsday War. After returning to the Celestial Palace, the Queen Devil Queen summoned Queen High Exian and directly said, "If I lend you the Legion of Doom, what will you do?" Queen High Exian said, "Sweep through the entire Northwest continent and the Southwest continent." The Devil Queen asked, "What else?" Queen High Exian hesitated for a moment before saying, "Massacre the city?" The Devil Queen asked, "How many cities?" Queen High Exian hesitated. All of them?" "Yes, all of them." The Devil Queen spoke. "I will lend you 20 million Legion of Doom, 30 Earth Dragons of Destruction, 100 Black Dragons, 5,000 Black Vile Dragons, and 20,000 War Behemoths." As soon as he said this, Queen High Exian's heart started beating violently. She had never thought of borrowing so many troops. The Devil Queen said, "You have to take down Northwest Qin City in the shortest time possible, then quickly head south and take down West Capital. Then cross the sea to the Southwest Continent and take down all 19 provinces of the Southwest Continent. Every time you take down a place, immediately massacre the city, from Northwest Qin City to the southern tip of the Southwest Continent. Understand?" Queen High Exian was aghast, then gritted her teeth and said, "Yes, Your Majesty Devil Queen, I will definitely let Yang Dingtian feel the pain of his bones." The Devil Queen sneered. The people of the Southwest Continent are Yang Dingtian's most loyal worshippers. A considerable portion of the Council of Light's war materials are manufactured in the Southwest Continent. Now this group of people will pay the price for their actions. I want to exterminate the entire Northwest Continent and the Southwest Continent. Prince Li Ming hesitated for a moment before saying, "Your Majesty Devil Queen, we may have to leave a group of people behind to maintain the most basic order of the world." The Devil Queen said, "The people of Zhongjing and Zhongzhou are the most cowardly, greedy and cowardly. Leave them behind. The people of the West Continent are all loyal to Yangding Tian. None of them can be left behind. Kill them all." "Yes," everyone shouted in unison. The Devil Queen's eyes were filled with fury, and she said coldly, "The people of the Council of Light are shameless. I was just playing a game, and they actually slapped me in the face. Now, I will let them feel the wrath of the Devil Queen." The Devil Queen suddenly flew above the Skirich imperial capital and looked down at the countless dark castles. "Have the ice elemental dark owl dragons been manufactured?" The Devil Queen asked. Song Chuanhua's demonic fire phoenix had made the dark owl dragons suffer. If there were ice elemental dark owl dragons, then the demonic fire phoenix's doomsday would come. Prince Li Ming said, "They have been manufactured, more than 10,000 of them." The Infernal Queen's undead concubine waved her hand, and her wand flew out like a meteor. At the same time, countless dark owl dragons flew out from various dark castles. Fire-breathing evil dragon, poison-breathing evil dragon, electricity-breathing evil dragon like a tide. They followed closely behind the magic wand. Whoosh! The magic staff melted a huge hole in the dark matter. Countless dark owl dragons flew out of the Empire of Darkness from this huge hole and flew toward the human countries. "Now, let the entire human countries feel the wrath of the Devil Queen. All dark owl dragons, attack every place in the human countries without a plan. Kill every person, and destroy every city and village. 100,000 dark owl dragons kill for 3 days and 3 nights. Yes, on the ground of the Sky Demon City, a huge hole suddenly split open. Then countless dark owl dragons, an astronomical number of them, were used like a swarm of bees. A total of 100,000 dark owl dragons covered the sky and covered the sun. Whoosh 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 whoosh. Then these 100,000 dark owl dragons, each 10,000 of them formed an army, and flew in all directions. They flew toward the East Continent, the Central Continent, the Zhongjing Continent, the Cloud Sky City, the Northwest Qin City, the Railway Flame City, the Yingzhou Continent, the Southwest Continent. These 100,000 dark owl dragons were released to the entire human countries like a plague. This group of dark owl dragons was the devil of the sky, the lightning of the sky. Their speed was almost faster than any demon vulture. They could easily reach more than 5,000 miles per hour. Within a few hours, they could reach every place in the human countries. The first place they reached was the Great Cloud Sky City. In fact, when they were still a few thousand miles away from the Cloud Sky City, the patrolling winged cavalry had already discovered them. Then they sent out a crystal alarm, the highest level crystal alarm. Then, the entire Great Cloud Sky City went into full preparation for war. Only 10 minutes later, countless dark vile dragons flew over like bolts of lightning. Whoosh 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 whoosh. Boom 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 boom. Countless dark owl dragons launched a crazy attack on the entire Cloud Sky City. Countless flames, ice, and lightning struck every place in the Great Cloud Sky City. And the Great Cloud Sky City also fought back crazily. More than 100,000 large crystal crossbows shot countless arrows into the sky like a rainstorm. Thousands of martial arts legions formed a formation and flew into the sky, attacking the countless dark owl dragons. The sky-level missiles shot at the place where the dark owl dragons were the most concentrated. But there were simply too many dark owl dragons. Moreover, their speed was simply too fast. Even if the crystal crossbows hit them, it would only leave a mark, and they would not be hurt at all. As for the sky-level missiles, the probability of hitting them was extremely low. The most effective way to kill them was the sword light attack of the martial arts legions. However, this group of beasts was too fast, and only half-saints could catch up with them. As the trump card of the dark owl dragons, the magic fire demon phoenix suffered a fatal attack as soon as it flew into the sky. Hundreds of ice elemental dark owl dragons shot it down to the ground. If the martial arts legions had not come to the rescue, this magic fire demon phoenix would have been doomed. Therefore, these tens of thousands of dark owl dragons destroyed everything in the city crazily, but they did not encounter any decent resistance. All the higher-ups of the Council of Light realized that compared to the dark owl dragons, this group of lightning-fast dark owl dragons was more deadly. Fortunately, this large number of dark owl dragons did not have a commander at all. They just followed their instincts to kill everyone they saw and destroy every place. They did not have a specific target. This crazy massacre lasted for a full 4 hours. For the Great Cloud Sky City, this was 4 hours that were close to hell. Almost the entire city was burning. In the Great Cloud Sky City, except for the sturdy and huge city walls, there was a large castle made of stone. All the remaining houses were burned into ruins. Almost all the soldiers who showed up were slaughtered. Countless crystal crossbows were destroyed. After the crazy massacre, the dark owl dragons flew toward the northwest Qin city like lightning. On the way, all the houses they saw were destroyed. They instinctively destroyed everything they saw. Dongfang Minmi looked at the devastated city, his heart in pain. He knew that the Devil Queen would definitely take revenge, but he did not expect it to come so quickly and so fiercely. After a long time, he ordered the Council of Light. Send my order to every large city in the human countries. When the Dark Owl Dragon's air raid siren arrives, everyone is to hide underground in the sturdy fortresses. Do not show up, do not fight back. Let the Dark Owl Dragons destroy and destroy. When Dongfang Minmi gave this order, his heart was bleeding. This was a fatal blow to the morale. The first to suffer was the Great Cloud Sky City. However, within a day, this kind of disaster happened to all the large cities in the human countries. The northwest Qin city was also fatally destroyed by 10,000 Dark Owl Dragons. Both the Great Cloud Sky City and the northwest Qin city only had soldiers and no civilians. As for the West Capital and the Iron Furnace City, there were still many civilians. At this time, they were really facing a disaster. The Dark Owl Dragons, these bastards, loved to slaughter living people. 10,000 Dark Owl Dragons attacked the West Capital City for 8 hours. They killed all the lives they could see and destroyed every building they could. The Iron Furnace City was the same. However, their frenzied slaughter in the north had given the Radiant Parliament precious time. The Council of Light sent the Mermaid Queen, Li Daoji, Yaozi, and countless masters above the Grandmaster level. They wore the Devil Spirit Mist cloak and rushed to the Middle Continent and the Southwest Continent at the fastest speed. They asked the Council of Light Corps to settle all the civilians in the huge castle and the underground fortress. In short, do not let any living person be exposed on the ground. On the city wall, these countless Dark Owl Dragons wreaked havoc in the Northwest Continent for a day and a night. Then, they flew across thousands of miles of sea toward the Northwest Continent. However, when these bastards saw the densely packed army of the Mermaid Empire on the surface of the sea, they were so excited that they wanted to attack crazily. The Dark Owl Dragons swooped down like fighter jets to attack the incomparably huge ancient beasts and the mermaid warriors on them. In the end, the ancient beasts that were tens of thousands of meters long rushed out of the sea and opened their bloody mouths. They bit hundreds of Dark Owl Dragons and bit them into pieces. Countless mermaid warriors attacked every Dark Owl Dragon that swooped down crazily. Instantly, the entire sea was dyed red. Countless Dark Owl Dragons fell to their deaths. The Dark Owl Dragons that suffered a great loss immediately spread their wings and flew high. They did not dare to provoke the beasts on the surface of the sea anymore. They whistled and flew toward the Southwest Continent. Then, the entire Middle Continent, the entire East Continent, and the entire Southwest Continent suffered. The Southwest Continent suffered the least damage. That was because the Southwest Continent had the highest organization. Before the Dark Owl Dragons attacked, most of the civilians were hiding in the huge fortresses. As for the Council of Light's secret factories, they were basically underground. They escaped the Dark Owl Dragons' attack. However, countless tents, villages, towns, and houses were burned into ruins by the Dark Owl Dragons. The one that suffered the most damage was undoubtedly Middle Continent, especially Zhongjing. The army of the Council of Light issued an alert, saying that the Dark Owl Dragons of the Legion of Doom would attack. They organized the civilians to hide in the huge fortresses or underground. However, Some of the civilians in Middle Continent felt that the best opportunity had come. The opportunity to show their loyalty to the Legion of Doom had come. Instead of hiding in the fortresses or underground, they waved the flag of the Temple of Annihilation, waved all kinds of banners, and held up good wine and good food. They shouted loudly, "Welcome Temple of Annihilation to end the dark reign of the Council of Light. Temple of Annihilation, welcome to Middle Continent. Temple of Annihilation, we support you. Please help us take back the land that was taken away by the Council of Light." This situation spread across the entire Middle Continent. In the beginning, there were only a few hundred people. In the end, it became a gathering of thousands and tens of thousands of people. Because the Legion of Doom was about to attack, the civilians who were afraid of the Council of Light's suppression were no longer afraid of the Council of Light's butcher's knife. As if they had found a huge backer, they shouted slogans and carried countless flags and banners. They walked on the streets and finally came to the square of the Taekwondo League's Zhongjing Main Hall. This was where the largest gathering was held. The biggest welcoming ceremony for the Legion of Doom was held here. "What should we do?" Zhu Hongxue asked. At this time, most of the higher-ups of the Council of Light were in the West Continent war zone. The highest authority in Zhongjing was Ning Busi, and his deputy was the Cloud Sky Pavilion Master. "If they want to die, let them be," Ning Busi said slowly. Then, he led everyone into the fortress. In the square of Zhongjing, hundreds of thousands of rebels stood in several formations and waved their flags wildly. "The Temple of Annihilation is here. The dark rule of the Council of Light is ended. Welcome to the Temple of Annihilation, and drive out the Council of Light. It's time to expose the true face of the Taekwondo League and the shameless face of the Council of Light. Long live the rebellion, and destroy the Council of Light." All over Zhongzhou State, countless rebels shouted desperately and looked up to the west. They were full of anticipation for the Legion of Doom that was about to come from the west. Did they support the Temple of Annihilation? No, most of them just didn't want to die with the Council of Light. There were also some people who thought that it was better to change rulers. The Council of Light ruled Zhongzhou, and there were many victims. Countless vassals lost their territories. Many people lost their power. This group of people hated the Council of Light madly. Most of the civilians lived a rich life. The rule of the Council of Light didn't bring any harm to their interests. However, the hostility between the Council of Light and the Temple of Annihilation brought about war. The Council of Light brought war to them. Now they had to show their obedience to the Temple of Annihilation. They had to show that they were obedient people, and that they didn't want to die with the Council of Light, no matter what. In the anticipation of countless people, the Dark Owl Dragon Legion of the Empire of Darkness finally arrived. They came in a black mass that blotted out the sky and covered the earth. Sure enough, they were as majestic and powerful as they had imagined. The people in Zhongjing Square were boiling and cheering wildly. "Welcome, welcome, welcome. We support the Temple of Annihilation. We reject war." The countless Dark Owl dragons in the sky saw the dense crowd in the square at first glance. Instantly, their eyes lit up and they drooled. Good, the best prey had appeared. The best target to kill had appeared. Instantly, countless dark vile dragons dashed toward the Zhongjing Square as fast as lightning. Seeing the Dark Owl Dragon Legion flying toward them, the crowd on the ground became more excited and waved the flags in their hands. "Welcome, Master Wang, welcome. Long live the Temple of Annihilation. End the Council of Light. End the evil rule of Yang Dingtian." Whoosh 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 whoosh, countless lightning bolts, flames, and ice abruptly shot out from the innumerable Dark Owl dragons. Boom 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 boom. Under the horrified gazes, countless people were burned into charcoal in an instant. They were burned into charcoal by the lightning. They were frozen into ice cubes by the ice. They were corroded into skeletons by the strong poison. Slaughter, slaughter, slaughter. It was a crazy slaughter. Countless dark vile dragons flew past the crowd with their sharp wings. In an instant, the crowd that they passed by was cut in half. The claws of the Dark Owl dragons easily crushed a hard skull. The entire Zhongjing Square had turned into hell. It was a terrifying slaughterhouse. Blood splattered all over the square and dyed the sky red. Chapter 990. At first, the people in the square were completely terrified. Then they screamed and ran for their lives. As for anger, it was a luxury at this moment of life and death. Obviously, the countless dark owl dragons would not give them a chance to escape. In a short period of time, everyone in the square had been killed. Moreover, almost all of them died without a complete corpse. Then, the dark owl dragons carried out the craziest destruction in Zhongjing. They burned down every house and electrocuted every living thing. This was the largest human city. Everyone was hiding in the sturdy fortress, hiding in the underground fortifications, and trembling in fear. Perhaps this city was too big and too prosperous. Therefore, the dark owl dragons were especially destructive. Countless dark owl dragons wreaked havoc in this city for a whole day. Then they flew to other places to kill and wreak havoc. These few days could be said to be a disaster for the human countries. 3 days and 3 nights. 100,000 dark owl dragons wreaked havoc in the human countries for 3 days and 3 nights. Their flying speed was more than twice the speed of sound. They could reach every place with ease. The entire human countries, from the northernmost king city to the southernmost southern barbarian continent, from the westernmost autumn water island to the easternmost eastern cloud state. Every city was subjected to the same fate. Every city, even the bigger towns, had people killed. The central continent had the most casualties without a doubt, especially Zhongjing. According to incomplete statistics, the number of people killed by the dark owl dragons in Zhongjing was close to 1 million. It was a fraction of the total population of Zhongjing. In the entire central continent, including the southern barbarian continent, more than 8 million people were killed. In the central continent alone, more than 5 million people were killed. Next, the northwest continent had the second most casualties. In Iron Furnace City, more than 350,000 people were killed. In Xijing, more than 500,000 people were killed. In Cloud Sky City, more than 150,000 people were killed. In Northwest Qin City, more than 200,000 people were killed. In the entire East Continent, more than 1 million innocent people were killed. The Southwest Continent had the least casualties. This was the second continent that the dark owl dragons attacked. Moreover, the entire Southwest Continent was crowded with hundreds of millions of people. In the end, less than 100,000 people died in the dark owl dragons' attack. First of all, when the Southwest Continent was being built, it was prepared to be the rear of the Great War. Therefore, countless underground defenses were built. Furthermore, huge caves had been dug out in the countless mountains. In addition, the newly built buildings were made of thick and large stones, which were very sturdy. Of course, the most important thing was still order. The Council of Light had the greatest organizational ability here, and could easily pass orders to every village in the shortest time possible. When Violet sent the air raid alarm to the Southwest Theater of Operations, the High Command immediately sent out tens of thousands of winged cavalry warriors to rule over every city and town. However, there was no doubt that it would be too late. The fastest way was still a signal flare, a special signal flare. When the LV-5 defense signal flare rose several thousand meters into the air, all the castles in the vicinity sent out the signal flare to inquire about the situation. After receiving the confirmation, the castles in the vicinity sent out the signal flare. Immediately, all the castles in the vicinity issued the latest level 5 defensive signal flares. Then, all the officials and soldiers immediately organized all the people to enter the nearest fortress, the nearest underground fortification, and the nearest cave. There were no complaints, no questions. The people of the Southwest Continent did not even need to be organized. They took the initiative to stop whatever they were doing and led their families to the designated fortress to hide. This was because such exercises had been carried out no less than 10 times. They even remembered clearly which fortress they were supposed to stay in and which position they were supposed to stay in. Ever since the Council of Light found out about the terrifying air power of the Empire of Darkness, they had organized no less than 10 such exercises in all the human countries. In the Southwest Continent, it was completely carried out. Every time, everyone carried it out seriously. Even the Southern Barbarian Continent in the New World had carried it out. However, It was a pity that because everything in the southern barbarian continent was newly built, they did not have enough time to build enough strong fortresses. Therefore, there were still more casualties. West Capital and Iron Furnace City were rather supportive of the Radiant Parliament, but they were only half-hearted when it came to this kind of exercise. As for the Middle Continent, they were completely passive and even expressed disdain and contempt for such exercises. They even debated with the officials of the Council of Light, saying that to protect the people's safety, they needed the courage of the Council of Light Corps, not training the people to hide. Moreover, when the Legion of Doom rushed into Zhongjing, it was meaningless to hide in the fortress. Because of this passive resistance, when the dark evil dragon attacked Zhongjing, in addition to the people in the square who were courting death, countless people ran around like headless flies or stubbornly stayed in their homes. They felt that they would not be so unlucky that the attack would not fall on their heads. It was for this reason that even though Zhongzhou State had the largest number of fortresses and the largest number of underground workers, millions of people died in the war. In fact, in some towns, not a single person managed to escape. Everyone was burned alive in their wooden houses. A few hours before the attack, the Council of Light sent out soldiers to force them to leave their towns and enter the stone fortresses immediately. However, they still refused to leave. They even had a strong conflict with the army of the Council of Light. The attack lasted for 3 days and 3 nights. In the end, when the incomplete data of casualties and losses were sent to the High Command Department of the Council of Light, although Dongfang Minmi was mentally prepared, he still spat out a mouthful of blood. More than 10 million people died. More than 10 million people were injured. An astronomical number of farmlands and orchards were destroyed. An astronomical number of houses were completely turned into ruins. More than tens of thousands of towns were completely turned into ruins. The entire human nation suffered an unprecedented blow. More than 80% of the Great Cloud Sky City in front of them had been completely turned into ruins. These places were not just simple houses but countless people's homes. They were built with the sweat and tears of countless people. As for the strategic grain depots, there were more than 50 of the Council of Light's super-large storage depots. In this attack, 5 of them were completely destroyed, while the remaining 4 were affected. However, most of them were not affected too much, because these giant storage depots were either built underground or deep in the mountains. Among hundreds of large and medium-sized munitions factories, no more than 5 were affected by the attack. However, hundreds of Navy ships were attacked, and half of them sank. If it were not for the attack of the Sea Species Army, the Dark Owl Dragon would not dare to stay on the surface of the sea for too long. The Navy would suffer even greater losses. And the greatest loss was at the Sunset Mountains. The Sunset Mountain Range, which spanned nearly 10,000 miles, was a strategic location for the Radiant Parliament. All of the kerosene was produced there. Because time was too tight, they could not move all the factories on the Sunset Mountains underground. As a result, they were attacked by the Dark Owl Dragon. As a result, hundreds of thousands of tons of kerosene were burned to ashes, and the kerosene forest was set ablaze. In order to put out the fire, the Council of Light sent out hundreds of thousands of soldiers. Just the Air Legion alone sent out 300,000 soldiers to put out the fire. In the end, it was completely useless. Even after thousands of casualties, they still could not put out the fire. The magic fire demon Phoenix went to the fire and desperately swallowed the flames, but it could not stop it completely. In the end, thousands of magic vultures and hundreds of thousands of black vultures carried the ancient giant beast, filled with seawater, and flew to the sky above the fire with difficulty. The ancient giant beast spat out an astronomical amount of seawater. In addition, a timely heavy rain extinguished this shocking fire. However, the forest that was burned had already exceeded 1 million mu. It had burned up all the kerosene reserves of the Council of Light for several years. The 100,000 Black Vulture Legion wreaked havoc in the human countries for 3 days and 3 nights. After endless destruction and slaughter, they finally returned with satisfaction. Of course, this return was not to the Empire of Darkness, but to the Great Cloud Sky City. everyone discovered that the number of dark owl dragons around the Great Cloud Sky City was increasing. Thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. In the end, all the dark owl dragons circled around the Great Cloud Sky City like lightning. Then, hundreds of huge caves suddenly opened up in the chaotic land hundreds of miles away from the Great Cloud Sky City. The diameter of each cave was more than a few hundred meters. Then hundreds of underground drilling demonic dragons suddenly drilled out of the caves. Hundreds of destructive underground dragons suddenly drilled out. In the end, countless Legion of Doom appeared. The World Destruction Barbarian Army, World Destruction Barbarian Cavalry, and war behemoths surged out of the hundreds of huge caves like a tide. Tens of millions of Legion of Doom appeared on the ground like a tide. They spread out on the ground for hundreds of miles. In the end, thousands of incomparably huge dark dragons drilled out of the collapsed ground of the Sky Demon City. In the sky, they formed a huge dark cloud that was thousands of miles long. It flew towards Cloud Sky City in a mighty manner. Tens of millions of Legion of Doom. Hundreds of thousands of war behemoths. Hundreds of thousands of dark owl dragons. Thousands of dark owl dragons. Hundreds of thousands of destructive underground dragons. Underground drilling demonic dragons. The most terrifying Legion of Doom in history swept toward the Cloud Sky City, with an aura of absolute destruction. The entire Cloud Sky City was less than 100 miles in length, and the Legion of Doom was thousands of miles in length. The tens of millions of black shadows of the Legion of Doom were 100 times more than the Cloud Sky City. Suddenly, the entire Cloud Sky City became an incomparably weak and isolated island that could be easily crushed. Looking at this shocking scene, anyone would feel despair. No one in the Council of Light would have any illusions about this war. In the face of this shocking contrast in power, there was no possibility of victory at all. At present, the production of destructive bombs had risen to 50 per day. Currently, there were nearly 200 bombs accumulated. Even without the Shura Vulture, how many Dark Owl dragons could these 200 destructive bombs kill? 200? But now, the Dark Owl dragons in the sky spanned thousands of miles. There were more than a few thousand of them. Maybe 4,000, maybe 5,000. The completely enraged Devil Queen Undead Concubine gave it her all. She wanted to use missiles to kill mosquitoes. She wanted to use a shocking giant axe to kill a weak little rabbit. This shocking Legion of Doom could easily destroy the entire human kingdom 10 or even 20 times. Unless Yang Dingtian successfully obtained the power of the so-called Naga royalty and staged the return of the king. Otherwise, the destruction of the human kingdom was destined. Even the higher-ups of the Council of Light were full of doubts about whether Yang Dingtian's return could bring victory. Anyone who saw this earth-shattering Legion of Doom and the destructive power that covered the entire world would lose confidence. And it wasn't just Cloud Sky City that was surrounded. There was also Northwest Qin City. Dozens of underground demon dragons suddenly tore dozens of huge holes in the northwest continent. Then countless Armageddon legions swarmed out of the hole. Tens of thousands of Dark Owl dragons, hundreds of Dark Owl dragons, and tens of thousands of war behemoths. They surged toward Northwest Qin City like a tide. They also surrounded Northwest Qin City into an isolated island. Queen Hai Xian received the order to slaughter the city, slaughter Qin City, Xijing, and the entire West Continent. At this time, Yang Dingtian finished writing the last code in the depths of the meditation world. This terrible work, this incomparably difficult work was finally completed. Immediately, he and the demon fox priest hugged each other and cried. Finally, it was finally completed. Hopefully it wasn't too late. Chapter 991. It was really an endless amount of time. Yang Dingtian had completely forgotten about the time. Previously, with his understanding of the divine realm, it was not enough to write a simulator. Therefore, he could only use the most stupid method, which was to write a human consciousness to control the soul sword's body, and use the 10,000 swords return to origin converter. This method was more direct, and belonged to the simulator's thinking. However, the workload was many times greater. The entire 10,000 swords return to origin code did not exceed 100 million. However, The code for this converter exceeded 200 million. Moreover, it was converting paragraph by paragraph. Every paragraph, it was unknown how many times it would make mistakes. Therefore, this was really a maddening job. Yang Dingtian's beard was unknown how long it was, and his hair was almost half white. As for the demon fox high priest, it was unknown how many times she had cried. Every time after crying, she would choose to sleep, and then get up to continue fighting. Just like that, after endless years, she finally completed this incomparably terrifying job. Finally, this converter was written into a virtual spirit scroll. The next thing he needed to do was to lure it into the real scroll. Under Nera's gaze, the demon fox high priest moved again, and went to the bookshelf to take a blank spirit scroll. Yang Dingtian took it, and was about to write the scroll. "Let me do it," the demon fox high priest said. "Writing a scroll will consume a lot of spiritual energy and profound qi." Yang Dingtian did not decline. This converter was written by two people, and the demon fox high priest was also very familiar with it. The demon fox high priest closed her eyes and opened the blank spirit scroll. Then, she mixed the countless codes in her mind with powerful profound qi, and began to engrave them on the blank energy scroll. Swish, 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 swish. Immediately, countless complex runes and energy routes were engraved on the spirit scroll layer by layer. In the meditation world, the entire process was incomparably slow, a total of 200 million codes. Even if it was engraved with spirit and profound qi, it would take more than half a year. But in the real world, it was incomparably fast. Countless codes were engraved on the scroll as if they were flying, layer by layer, layer by layer. In just a short moment he had finished writing. At this moment, the demon fox high priest was completely exhausted. The mental strength and saint-level Xian Qi in his body were almost completely depleted. "All right, take it and cultivate," Neru said. This was a scroll written by Yang Dingtian. However, if one wanted to learn it, they still had to cultivate this scroll. It seemed a little ridiculous. It's just like the Microsoft engineers who wrote the Windows operating system. Although they wrote the operating system, they still need to install the Windows 8 operating system on their computers. Holding the scroll in his hand, he closed his eyes and infused his consciousness and profound energy into it. Whoosh! The scroll contained countless energy auras, energy codes, complex runes, energy circuits, and so on. It directly surged into Yang Dingtian's entire body, into his brain, and into his profound veins. He had left a deep imprint in his sea of energy, profound veins, and brain. After a short while, Yang Dingtian had completely mastered the converter scroll. As for the 10,000 swords returned to origin, whether it was the human version or the soul sword version, Yang Dingtian had already learned it. Next, if he wanted to control the soul sword and use the 10,000 swords returned to origin, he only needed to combine the converter scroll with the 10,000 swords returned to origin scroll. However, he couldn't do it here. It was too powerful and would destroy this precious library. Demon Fox High Priest, how long have we been in there? Yang Dingtian asked. The Demon Fox High Priest said lazily, "I don't know. Maybe 300 years, maybe even longer." She was really tired and sleepy. However, her expression was filled with boundless satisfaction as she said, "Even though I don't know how many times I cried and how many times I was in pain. However, this period of time was the happiest time of my life. It was also the time where I gained the most. The research in this period of time was more than the sum of my previous research." Yang Dingtian bowed deeply and said, "I'm going to leave. I'm extremely grateful to you for this period of time." The Demon Fox High Priest nodded. Then, she stretched out her hand lazily and said, "Help me up. I'm going to end my meditation." Then, Yang Dingtian helped her up and walked towards his room. Returning to the Demon Fox High Priest's room, Yang Dingtian turned around. This was because the Demon Fox High Priest wanted to activate the meditation artifact to wake himself up. Everyone's meditation artifact was an absolute secret. Other than himself, no one else could see it. Therefore, Yang Dingtian turned around. "You turn around," the Demon Fox High Priest said. "We should be in the most intimate relationship right now. Why do you have to be so pretentious?" Yang Dingtian turned around. The demon fox high priest took out a bell from the box and gently knocked on it. Ding! An ethereal sound rang out. Whoosh 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 whoosh. The image of the entire world began to distort and spin. Faster and faster. Faster and faster. In the end, it completely turned into a ray of white light. Swish! All the images in the meditation world ended. Yang Dingtian suddenly opened his eyes. Instantly he returned to the real world. However, it was no different from the meditation world. He was still in the demon fox's room, and she was still holding the bell in her hand. The highest level of meditation. Indeed, most of the time, reality and meditation overlapped. At this moment, the demon fox high priest was still incomparably haggard, lazily lying on the carpet. Let's go. I want to have a good sleep. The demon fox high priest waved her hand. Yang Dingtian once again bowed deeply. Oh right, remember to come and see me. Suddenly the demon fox high priest said, If I can't stay here any longer, I might come and find you. Yang Dingtian stared at her face and then nodded. I will. Then, Yang Dingtian was filled with reluctance, but he was also extremely anxious as he left the demon fox high priest's room. When he returned to the hall, he saw Neru. Miss Neru, how long have I been in the meditation world? Yang Dingtian hurriedly asked. 28 days, Neru said. Yang Dingtian was instantly shocked. 28 days? It was actually 28 days. It had actually been so long. This meant that the world extermination war had already begun, and it had even been going on for a long time. Previously, Yang Dingtian's plan was to not exceed 10 days, because he felt that if it exceeded 10 days, the human countries would be in danger. With the current strength of the human countries, it was simply impossible to resist the Legion of Doom. Could it be that the heavens were really so cruel? Was the human countries really going to be destroyed? Yang Dingtian's heart was burning with anxiety as he rushed out like lightning. Neru also immediately caught up and said, Yang Dingtian, I'll go with you. Yang Dingtian spoke as he sprinted. My spatial door is unable to pass through energy bodies that are stronger than me. Neru said, Don't you have a space ring? I can stay in there and be brought to the human countries by you. Yang Dingtian was stunned. This was indeed possible. Previously, Naga Shuang had been brought to the space ring by Yang Dingtian for a long time. However, there was no oxygen or aura in the space ring. It was completely silent. Naga Shuang could withstand it, but could Neru? Don't worry. I have the turtle breath pill. I can survive in an isolated space. Neru said. Not to mention, it's only for a moment. Yang Dingtian immediately nodded. Then Neru said, Yang Dingtian, you go first, I'll change my clothes. I can't let anyone know that I'm a member of the Little Western Paradise Council. This will alert Eternal Shiwentian. After the World Extermination War, you might have to face the Little Western Paradise. I have to keep this a secret. Saying so, Neru quickly took off her clothes and rushed into the association. Her beautiful and seductive figure appeared in a flash. Just a moment later, Neru had already rushed out of the High Priest Association, but her body was still naked. As she flew north, she put on her clothes. She knew that Yang Dingtian was currently extremely anxious and had to make the best use of every second. She was wearing a tight-fitting mermaid suit. The golden tight-fitting one-piece suit was not a skirt, but a pair of pants. The pattern of the one-piece suit was the scales of a mermaid. Then, she wore a golden mask on her face. The curves of her delicate body were clearly visible, which could arouse a demon. She deliberately dressed like this, because only the Mermaid Empire had saint-level experts by Yang Dingtian's side. This attire would not arouse any suspicions. Soon, the two of them flew away from Mount Buzhou and arrived at the edge of the torn space. Yang Dingtian was about to use a spatial technique, but Neru said, Yang Dingtian, do you want to try the Naga Royalty Sword Spirit? If it doesn't work, you can return to the High Priest Association and continue to study it. Yang Dingtian thought for a while, then nodded. Whoosh! The soul sword close to the Emperor grade suddenly flew out. Yang Dingtian used the sword spirit. 10,000 swords returned to origin, and the conversion secret technique. Whoosh 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 whoosh. Countless sword lights suddenly burst out from the soul sword. Every sword gleam was golden in color. Furthermore, each sword light was at least a few thousand meters long. It was countless times bigger than the sword soul that Yang Dingtian had seen before. This was already the sword spirit that Yang Dingtian had suppressed to the minimum energy, but it was still so terrifying. It could be seen how amazing the sword spirit of Naga royalty was. Swish, swish, swish. The 1,000-meter sword spirit of Naga royalty instantly cut the surrounding 100 miles of space. Then an incomparably shocking scene appeared. The surrounding 100 miles of space was distorted, as if it was cut into countless pieces. This Naga royal clan sword soul could even cut through space. This was indeed a completely different energy attribute. It was too heaven-defying. Gradually, the distorted space began to slowly heal and recover. Yang Dingtian quickly put the soul sword into the space ring. It was just a small test, and it was so shocking. Then, what would the effect of using it to slaughter the Legion of Doom be? Yang Dingtian was looking forward to it. Chapter 992. Na Lu swallowed a turtle breath pill, and his entire body instantly entered a short period of stagnation. Yang Dingtian carried her and put her into the space ring. Then with his fastest speed, he opened a spatial door and jumped in. Whoosh! Suddenly a light flashed in front of him. He entered the torn space. After entering the space, Yang Dingtian immediately carried Neru out of the space ring and woke her up. She opened her beautiful eyes slightly and said, "So fast. Actually, I don't even need the turtle breath pill." "Let's go," Yang Dingtian said. Then, Yang Dingtian flew towards the east at an extremely fast speed. Yang Dingtian didn't just use the mystic flying technique. He also used the blink technique of the demonic mist cloak. It was a distance of several tens of thousands of miles. Yang Dingtian used less than 4 hours to fly there at a crazy speed. Then, Neru entered Yang Dingtian's space ring again. Yang Dingtian created a space door, jumped out of the torn space, and entered the yin-yang mirror. Then he let out Neru. The two of them continued to fly towards Cloud Sky City in the south at the fastest speed. In less than 2 hours, Yang Dingtian flew out of the yin-yang mirror and arrived in the sky above the northern region's King City. Before seeing King City, Yang Dingtian was almost praying in his heart. Please don't see a ruin, please don't. Soon, the two of them flew over the King City. Suddenly, Yang Dingtian's heart twitched, because the King City below had completely turned into a pile of ruins. The entire city was filled with scorch marks and broken walls. There wasn't a single person in the huge city. Even the thick smoke hadn't been torn apart. Along the way to the south, there were ruins everywhere. This only proved one thing. The Battle of Extinction had happened. At least, the entire northern region had completely fallen. Suddenly, Yang Dingtian was getting more and more afraid. At the same time, in the Great Cloud Sky City, the battle had entered the most intense moment. The Great Cloud Sky City was completely surrounded by the Armageddon Legion. The battle started more than 2 hours ago. Even though this was a desperate battle, even though there was no hope of winning, however, the Great Cloud Sky City still carried out the most intense counterattack. When tens of millions of Legion of Doom rushed towards the Great Cloud Sky City like a tide, tens of thousands of cannons and hundreds of thousands of crystal crossbows fired wildly. Again and again, the powerful martial arts Legion threw giant bombs into the sky above the Armageddon Legion. Waves after waves of the Armageddon Legion died at the foot of the city walls and the mountain peaks. The corpses were piled up. Originally, the Azura Spirit Vulture wanted to revive the dead members of the Armageddon Legion, but it was stopped by the undead concubine. Moreover, they didn't attack Cloud Sky City's Sky City. Countless dark colossal dragons, destructive earth dragons, and burrowing demonic dragons appeared. They didn't attack either. They just let the countless Legion of Doom rush up like a tide. Dongli asked why she didn't let the Dark Dragon participate in the battle. The Devil Queen ignored him. Countless Dark Dragon and Dark Dragon were setting up a formation in the air. The Devil Queen's undead concubine wanted to use the countless Dark Vile Dragons and Dark Colossal Dragons as a shield to encircle the elites of the human nations and the Mermaid Empire. Then, She would condense the attack energy of all the dark dragon and dark dragon to kill all the experts of the human kingdom and the mermaid empire. As for the Cloud Sky City, she didn't care about it at all. The Devil Queen ordered slowly. Later, I will use hundreds of thousands of dark dragon and nearly 10,000 dark dragon to form a huge prison in the air. It will envelop the entire Cloud Sky City and the thousands of experts of the human kingdom and the mermaid empire. When she said this, everyone was shocked. The Devil Queen said, "All this time, we have tried to avoid fighting with the human kingdom's martial arts army, because they are far stronger than us in terms of martial arts. Today, we will use the energy of the dark dragon and dark dragon to decide the outcome of the battle and kill them all." Yes, thousands of evil martial artists shouted in unison. The Devil Queen said, "You all have immortal bodies, so you don't have to be afraid of these martial arts experts. The essence of the human kingdom doesn't lie in those cities or the tens of millions of soldiers, but the thousands of martial arts experts in front of us. They once humiliated us. Today, we will use death to repay them for what they have done." Yes, all the evil spirit martial artists said. The Devil Queen looked at the Shura Vulture and said, "Vulture, your mission today is the most important. What you need to do is not to revive a dark dragon or dark dragon. You need to maintain the encirclement in a sealed state. You must not let any martial arts expert escape from our encirclement. Once the encirclement is broken, you will revive immediately." Yes, the Shura Vulture said. The war on the ground was still ongoing. Tens of millions of Legion of Doom and war beasts crazily attacked the weak Cloud Sky City. The entire Cloud Sky City was like a coral being bombarded by stormy waves, on the verge of collapse. The human kingdom's crazy counterattack was still ongoing. Countless Legion of Doom were smashed into pieces and turned into ashes. However, the Devil Queen did not care at all. She had been commanding the thousands of evil spirit martial artists. These thousands of evil spirit martial artists commanded the hundreds of thousands of dark dragons in the sky to arrange the troops one by one. First, these thousands of dark dragons built the skeleton of the dome. Each of the thousands of dark dragons was at least tens of thousands of meters long. All the dark dragons were coiled together. They formed a semicircular dome with a diameter of more than 300 miles. It completely enveloped the entire Cloud Sky City. Dongfang Minmi and the Mermaid Queen quickly realized that something was wrong. The Mermaid Queen immediately led more than a dozen half-saints to put on the destructive bombs to destroy these dark dragons. However, they had just smashed their heads and killed one. The Shura Vulture immediately revived them. Although the higher-ups of the Council of Light knew that this dark dome was a huge conspiracy, they could not destroy it at all. And the Legion of Doom on the ground was still crazily attacking. Thousands of dark dragons completed the construction of the enormous dome, which had a diameter of 300 miles. Then, hundreds of thousands of dark dragons began to fill the gaps between the dome skeleton. It was supposed to be daytime. The higher-ups of the Council of Light, the entire Cloud Sky City, and the experts of the Mermaid Empire found that the sky was gradually darkening. Dongfang Mimi said in shock. The Devil Queen's dead concubine didn't just want to destroy Cloud Sky City. She wanted to destroy all of our martial arts experts. The Mermaid Queen Violets quickly understood this intention. Now the dome had not been completed yet. If the martial arts army wanted to escape, this was already their last chance. Dongfang Minmi immediately shouted, "Queen Violets, immediately lead the experts of the Mermaid Empire and charge out." The Mermaid Queen said, "Impossible, we have to leave together. If Yang Dingtian were to know that I abandoned all of you at the crucial moment, he would never forgive me." Dongfang Minmi said, "But we can't abandon the million soldiers of Cloud Sky City. Before Cloud Sky City falls, we can't leave." Suddenly, both sides began to struggle. Then neither side was willing to leave. Neither side was willing to escape without fighting. Cloud Sky City hadn't fallen yet, and there were nearly 2 million soldiers below. Dongfang Nimi really couldn't abandon them and run away. Dongfang Minmi gritted his teeth and said, "Whether we live or die, we have to fight. Even if we die, Sect Master Yang Dingtian will avenge us. Yes, fight to the death. We will never abandon our comrades. We will never escape without fighting. Countless martial arts experts roared. Form the formation. Dongfang Minmi suddenly roared. Immediately, thousands of martial arts experts began to form a formation in the air. What they formed was a sharp knife formation. The mermaid queen with the strongest cultivation was the tip of the knife. The remaining half-saints and infinite great masters were at the outermost edge of the formation, as the edge of the knife. As for those with lower cultivation, they would be protected by the stronger ones within the formation. All the warriors contributed energy to this sharp knife formation. First, an incomparably powerful and huge energy shield was constructed. Then, the entire sharp knife formation flew around and crazily attacked the Legion of Doom that was rushing to the ground. The power of this sharp knife formation was indeed incomparably huge. Wherever it passed, countless Armageddon legions were instantly crushed. Whoosh 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 whoosh. At the same time, hundreds of thousands of dark dragons filled every air raid in the dome like lightning. In the end, the entire incomparably huge dome prison was completed. The entire Cloud Sky City had completely turned into night. The dome, with a diameter of 200 to 300 miles, completely enveloped the entire Cloud Sky City, including the mountain peaks. It was airtight. Not to mention the wind, even the sun could not shine in at all. Then, thousands of dark spirit experts also began to form a formation within the formation. As the most core and most important, the Shura vulture was at the center of the dark spirit formation and could not be damaged at all. The final battle was about to begin. Under the shocking dome of the Legion of Doom, thousands of righteous martial arts legions fought against thousands of dark spirit legions. This was the final battle of the Doomsday War. The sharp knife formation of the martial arts legions of the human countries and the Mermaid Empire was doing the final slaughter. The target of the slaughter was the countless war beasts on the ground. They used the unfreezing water, the power of the formation, the destructive bombs, and the giant bombs. The martial arts legions frantically destroyed countless war beasts. Because next, they would have a final battle with the dark spirit army in the sky, so they could not care about the war on the ground. Everything on the ground would be handed over to the 2 million soldiers, tens of thousands of cannons, thousands of missiles, and hundreds of thousands of crystal crossbows in the defense line of Cloud Sky City. Although the sharp knife formation of the martial arts legions was incomparably fast and frantically destroyed countless war beasts, there were simply too many war beasts in the Legion of Doom. There were simply too many of them to count. And the formation of the Dark Spirit Army had already been formed. The final battle was about to begin. On the ground, millions of Council of Light soldiers were frantically bombarding. Every second, tens of thousands of cannons, hundreds of thousands, and millions of crystal crossbows were wildly shot out. Under the huge dome, there were raging flames everywhere. There were cannons and crossbows everywhere like a storm. Every second, countless Legion of Doom soldiers were smashed to pieces. However, every second, more Doomsday Barbarian soldiers rushed up the city walls. The Devil Queen looked at the sharp knife formation of the martial arts legions in front of her and smiled coldly. In fact, this group of people were the best dark spirit puppeteers because their cultivation was strong enough. But it was a pity that the quota for dark spirits was already full. Then let this group of people die. Without this group of people, Yang Dingtian would lose anything to rely on and become a loner. He would definitely feel a bone-piercing pain and would definitely feel despair. And after they died, their souls would enter the Underworld Empire. Then Wentian Ghost Emperor would have thousands of powerful undead slaves. At that time, as long as he devoured all the undead, Wentian Ghost Emperor would be powerful enough to destroy the world. After Demon King Wentian had successfully possessed Yang Dingtian, he had fused with Naga Schwanger, and the two of them had become one. The Demon King Wentian would possess half of Naga's demigod body. In the end, all the Demon King Wentian would become one. The Demon King's main body with the demigod body, Wentian Ghost Emperor who devoured all the dark spirits in the Underworld Empire, Wentian forever in the Little Western Paradise, and Wentian who was far away in New Naga. At that time, the Demon King Wentian would surpass Naga and become the most powerful person in history. At that time, he might directly jump from demigod to god. Then he could challenge the real god of chaos. Once he won, he could become the only true ruler of this chaotic world, and become the new god of chaos. This was the Demon King Wentian's ultimate goal. Yang Dingtian, on the other hand, was short-sighted and ignorant. He thought that the Demon King Wentian wanted to trigger the Great Nirvana and perish together with the god of chaos. What a childish and naive idea. Perhaps the Demon King Wentian once had such an idea. However, Wentian, who had sat on the throne of darkness for 200 years, had changed everything. Advancing to God, the ultimate strength, and replacing the god of chaos was his eternal goal. And now, destroying these martial arts legions was only the first step to the Demon King Wentian's ascension to God. Seizing Yang Dingtian's body was the most crucial step to Wentian's ascension to God. As for the Doomsday Battle, it was nothing. The martial arts legions and the dark spirit legions were getting closer and closer. When there were still tens of thousands of meters left, Queen Devil Queen slowly raised her jade-like hand and said, "Kill! Annihilate the martial Dao core." "Yes," Dongfang Minmi hissed. "For the human countries, for justice, kill." In an instant, all the profound chi energy in the two great arrays condensed. Thousands of people combined into one. "Kill!" Whoosh, two earth-shattering sword lights shot out. One was white, coming from the light. The other was black, coming from the evil side. Boom! Two earth-shattering sword lights fiercely collided. It was like Mars colliding with Earth. Chapter 993. The White Light of Thousands of Human Kingdoms and Mermaid Empire's Powerhouses. The Black Sword Light of Thousands of Evil Spirit Warriors. They collided fiercely in the dome. Boom! The entire dome shook violently. Then, the large array formed by thousands of evil spirit warriors from the Empire of Darkness flew out. In fact, countless evil spirit martial artists were directly annihilated. The allied forces of the human kingdoms and Mermaid Empire had obtained an overwhelming victory in the martial Dao. However, evil spirit warriors had immortal bodies. After their entire bodies and skeletons were turned into ashes, only the heart, brain, Xian meridians, and energy reserve were left behind. Then, at a speed visible to the naked eye, all of them recovered to their original state. Facing this result, the Queen Devil Queen had already foreseen it, and only smiled coldly. Originally, the human kingdoms were also vulnerable in the martial Dao. However, with the addition of the Mermaid Empire, they instantly obtained an overwhelming advantage. Of course, evil ways could also possess incomparably powerful martial Dao strength. The Little Western Paradise had no less than 10 saint-level powerhouses, and even more half-saint-level powerhouses. The Underworld Empire had even more saint-level powerhouses and half-saint-level powerhouses. However, the Queen Devil Queen felt that there was no need. The opponent's martial Dao strength had obtained an overwhelming advantage, but so what? The Queen Devil Queen smiled disdainfully, then raised her jade-like hand and said, "Chaos Demonic Array, condense energy." Instantly, the dome formed by countless dark dragons and dark evil dragons suddenly shrank and began to condense energy. Dongfang Minmi and the Mermaid Queen couldn't help but be aghast. In particular, the Mermaid Queen had seen the power of a similar array before. In the sacred land of the Snake People Empire, Queen Hai Xian had used millions of lives to condense a pyramid of human lives and built a hell demonic array. Queen Hai Xian originally only had the power of a high-level half-saint-level powerhouse. However, with this hell demonic array, she had almost killed one saint-level and two half-saint-level powerhouses. It was also because of this hell demonic array that Queen Hai Xian challenged the Empire of Darkness and asked for a semi-independent status. The chaos demonic array in front of them was actually similar to the hell demonic array. However, it was not as cruel and did not directly overdraw countless lives. However, it was still the same principle as a supercomputer. That was, countless CPUs were connected in parallel to build a supercomputer group, and then the computing power would reach an astonishing 500 billion times per second. In fact, the hundreds of thousands of processors were not very powerful individually, but the power when combined together was extremely shocking. And demonic array, The hell demonic array was the demonic array was the most. There were close to 10,000 dark colossal dragons, and more than 100,000 dark vile dragons on the dome. Compared to the hellfiend formation of the Sea Heart Queen, it was far, far more powerful. Of course, it was impossible to gather the energy of these hundreds of thousands of dark vile dragons, and close to 10,000 dark colossal dragons. Of dark demonic dark, only a small portion would be condensed. As for how much would be condensed, it would depend entirely on how the array was processed. The Mermaid Queen and Dongfang Minmi looked at each other and said, "Next, it will be very difficult to endure. It is possible that he will be reduced to ashes." Dongfang Minmi said, "That doesn't matter, as long as you fought before." Then Dongfang Minmi roared, "All martial artists, gather all your energy and form the largest energy shield. As for whether this is our doomsday, that will depend on the arrangement of the heavens." "Yes," all the warriors shouted in unison. Immediately, thousands of human warriors and Mermaid Empire warriors channeled their Xian-Qi to form the strongest energy shield. The primal chaos demonic array in the Dark Dome was condensed to the extreme. Then the thousands of evil spirit martial artists began to change their formation. It was directly connected to the dome, where thousands of evil spirit martial artists formed a sharp probe. It was a probe that was hundreds of meters long, and this needle was the sharp sword in the Queen Devil Queen's hand. "Kill!" the Queen Devil Queen roared. Suddenly, the incomparably powerful energy gathered by the primal chaos demonic array finally condensed to a point. Then through the probe formed by thousands of evil spirit martial artists, it shot out fiercely. This was an earth-shattering power. This was a power that could destroy heaven and earth. Boom! An incomparably bright ray of light suddenly shot out and hit the large formation formed by thousands of martial artists. Then a white light suddenly burst out. Under the originally dark dome, it was instantly as bright as day. Everyone entered a temporary state of blindness, unable to see anything. Even the Legion of Doom, who was crazily attacking, was stunned for a moment because of this fatal light. This shocking energy fiercely struck the martial artist's grand array. In an instant all the warriors, including the saint-level Mermaid Queen, spat out blood. This incomparably powerful energy shield was almost torn apart in an instant. Then the remaining energy hit all the martial artists. Those with high cultivation received high damage, while those with low cultivation received low damage. With just one blow, thousands of warriors were fatally injured. Among them, there was a saint level, more than a dozen half-saint level, hundreds of infinite great masters, and hundreds of grand masters. Such an extremely powerful martial arts force couldn't even withstand a blow from this primal chaos demonic array. Really, they can't even withstand a single blow. The Devil Empress Wang Ji sneered and said, "If that's the case, these thousands of martial Dao experts will be completely annihilated in just 3 attacks. Yang Dingtian will then become a loner. Among them are Yang Dingtian's master's wife, mother-in-law, and wife, right?" Prince Li Ming, who was beside him, said, "It shouldn't take 3 attacks. 2.5 should be enough." The Queen Devil Queen smiled and said, "Unfortunately, not even half." At this time, Dongfang Minmi and the Mermaid Queen looked at each other. "We can't take it, Your Majesty," Dongfang Minmi said. "After the 3 plans are combined into one attack, the thousands of us will be annihilated." The Mermaid Queen nodded and said, "I know." Dongfang Minmi said, "You are a saint-level expert. You can escape alone. You are pregnant. Go alone." The Mermaid Queen's face twitched. She shook her head and said, "Impossible, although I am a crazy woman. But at the most critical moment of the battle, I can't abandon all my comrades and run for my life." Then the Mermaid Queen said, "This primal chaos demonic array of the Empire of Darkness is very complicated. It needs to gather all the energy of the Dark Dragon. As long as we destroy one Dark Dragon, the network of the entire array will be destroyed, and we won't be able to gather energy. The array will be destroyed, and we won't be able to attack." Dongfang Minmi said, "Okay, then we will gather all our attacks and destroy one Dark Dragon. How long will it take to destroy one Dark Dragon if we gather the strength of thousands of people?" The Mermaid Queen said, "We don't have an array, so we can't gather it. But it shouldn't take too long. Then the thousands of top-notch martial artists formed the array and flew to the top of the dome. They randomly found a dark dragon and attacked it crazily. Whoosh 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 whoosh. Thousands of top-notch martial artists, from saint level to martial ancestor level, all released their sword auras crazily. This was also an incomparably powerful energy. Countless sword auras converged into an incomparably bright light of energy that frantically struck the body of the dark colossal dragon. And this dark dragon didn't resist at all. Condense! The Devil Queen Dead Princess shouted. Instantly, countless dragons gathered their energy in the incomparably huge dark dome again. And every dark dragon was the network of the primal chaos demonic array. Not a single one could be missing. Therefore, the dark dragon that was being attacked crazily still didn't move. It continued to gather and gather soon. The energy of countless dark dragons and dark dragons gathered to the extreme. They gathered into one point, and were about to launch a second fatal attack on the martial arts core. All the energy light gathered to the extreme, and was about to shoot out through the probe formed by the evil spirit warriors. Boom! And at this moment, after thousands of martial artists added up to millions of attacks, the dark dragon finally broke from the middle. With a loud bang, it suddenly broke apart. Then, the energy light of the primal chaos demonic array that had been condensed to the extreme suddenly extinguished. That's right, the dark dragon was indispensable. It was the energy network of the entire array. Once one was destroyed, the entire primal chaos demonic array would be destroyed. The Devil Queen looked coldly at the Shura vulture and said, "Do you want to be raped and killed by Dongli first?" The Shura vulture's delicate body trembled and said, I thought I was waiting to be destroyed before being resurrected." Then, the Shura vulture immediately activated her celestial spirit master talent. In an instant, the energy of the shattered dark dragon condensed and resurrected it as good as new. It took a lot of time and a lot of energy for a few thousand martial arts legions to destroy a single dark dragon. And the resurrection of the Shura vulture only took an instant. Suddenly, the Mermaid Queen and Dongfang Minmi were so angry that they almost vomited blood. Their efforts were in vain. Then, the entire primal chaos demonic array condensed again and again. Kill! After the energy light of the primal chaos demonic array condensed to the extreme, it shot out through the sinister spirit probe. At this time, thousands of top martial artists had to once again mobilize all their celestial chi energy to build a huge energy shield. But, boom! This destructive energy beam once again shot at the martial arts army's formation. In an instant, the entire energy shield was turned into ashes. The remaining energy fiercely struck all the martial artists. The stronger the cultivation, the greater the energy attack. Then, the thousands of top martial artists who had been gathered together all spat out blood and suddenly scattered. The second fatal blow of the primal chaos demonic array directly shattered the martial arts core's formation. Everyone's celestial meridians and sea of chi were severely damaged. Thousands of martial artists, dripping with blood, floated in the air. At this time, the war on the ground had also reached the final juncture. Countless war behemoths rushed to the front of the battlefield. The 100-meter-tall giants completely ignored the crazy artillery fire and arrow rain, and rushed directly to the top of the city wall. The shocking giant hammers in their hands slammed down fiercely. The giant unicorns weighing millions of kilograms ran wildly at a speed of nearly 100 meters per minute, and slammed into the city wall. In an instant the solid city wall, which was dozens of meters high and dozens of meters thick, was suddenly smashed open with an incomparably huge crack. Tens of thousands of war behemoths easily broke through the city wall through various methods. Then countless Armageddon legions swarmed in like a tidal wave. Great Cloud Sky City was broken. Although many artillery fire was still roaring, and many crystal crossbows were still shooting wildly, but the city was broken. After the World Extermination Legion launched their final attack, they did not even manage to hold out for 2 hours before they completely fell. Then, the Legion of Doom poured into Cloud Sky City like a tide, into the city that belonged to Yangding Tian. The Queen Devil Queen looked at the ground and then looked at the top martial artists of the human countries and the Mermaid Empire, who were flying in all directions. She shook her head and said disdainfully, "They really can't withstand a single blow. Li Ming, you were right. 2.5 attacks, and they will be turned into ashes." Then, the Queen Devil Queen looked at the Mermaid Queen and said, "Violets, can you still condense your energy shield?" Dongfang Minmi and the Mermaid Queen looked at each other, and then shook their heads. The energy of thousands of top martial artists had been consumed a lot. The most important thing was that their energy seas and mystic meridians were damaged. They could no longer condense their energy shields. The Queen Devil Queen said, "Since you can't condense your energy shields, then I will be kind and let you all die together. You all continue to condense a large formation, and then I will turn you all into ashes in one go, okay?" Dongfang Minmi and the Mermaid Queen looked at each other and then nodded. On the road to the underworld, it was better for everyone to walk together. At least they would have a companion. Then, the thousands of martial artists who were seriously injured gathered together with difficulty, and once again formed the Great Sharp Blade Formation. However, they were seriously injured, and even flying became difficult. This Great Sharp Blade Formation could no longer form an energy shield, and had no defensive ability. These thousands of martial artists were now unable to withstand a single blow. Finally, the thousands of martial artists gathered together again. Everyone looked at the destroyed Great Cloud Sky City on the ground, and then looked up at the dark dome. Finally, everyone was quiet, waiting for the arrival of death, waiting for the arrival of doomsday. At this moment, there was no despair in their hearts, only silence. The silence before death. Sect Master Yang Dingtian will definitely avenge us. Dongfang Minmi roared. Condense, the Queen Devil Queen roared. Then, in the entire Chaos Demonic Array, the energy of hundreds of thousands of Dark Vile Dragons, and close to 10,000 Dark Colossal Dragons began to condense and condense. When condensed to the extreme, it became an energy ray that could destroy heaven and earth. Then it was injected into the evil spirit probe. It was about to launch the third fatal attack. This attack, thousands of human martial artists, and the experts of the Mermaid Empire would all be turned into ashes, including Yang Dingtian's master, as well as Yang Dingtian's women, comrades, confidants, and almost all of his martial arts subordinates. Kill! The Queen Devil Queen roared fiercely. Swish! Suddenly, from a few hundred miles away, suddenly it shot out a shocking golden light. Countless 1,000-meter-long sword lights arrived like lightning. 10,000 swords returned to origin. Chapter 994. 10,000 returning swords. Every sword gleam was 1,000 meters long. The golden color was not a virtual sword gleam, but a real sword gleam. At first, there were hundreds of them, then thousands, and finally tens of thousands. It was the real 10,000 returning swords. Tens of thousands of golden giant swords seemed to fly from the ninth heaven. Countless golden swords pierced into the huge dome in a frenzy. Swish, 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 swish. Wherever the golden giant swords passed, the dark dragons and dark evil dragons were all shattered into pieces. It took a long time to destroy the dark dragons that were tens of thousands of meters long, and attacked by thousands of experts at the same time. It took more than 1,000,000 attacks to sever a dark colossal dragon. As for the sword soul of the Naga royal clan, it could easily tear apart the entire dark dragon. The dark dragon's shell, which was originally incomparably sturdy, melted like snow under the scorching sun in front of the Naga royalty sword spirit's energy. Countless dark dragons were instantly annihilated, their bodies smashed to pieces. Countless dark evil dragons did not even have the chance to be smashed into pieces. Where the 10,000 returning swords passed, where the Naga royalty sword spirit passed, they were illuminated by the golden light, and disappeared instantly. The entire dome, the entire chaos demonic formation, was instantly shattered. Everyone at the scene was completely stunned. Yang Dingtian had arrived. At the most critical moment, at the last moment, he finally performed the return of the king, the true return of the king. Of course, this was definitely not his intention to return at this time. In fact, he was still thousands of miles away. When he saw the ruins everywhere in the northern land, He was extremely shocked. Even though he had used the demonic spirit mist cloak flash technique to rush back to Cloud Sky City as quickly as possible. However, he still felt that his speed was not fast enough. Therefore, he directly used his consciousness to control the soul sword and flew over Cloud Sky City at a speed of more than 20 times the speed of sound, tens of thousands of miles per hour. Then, through the soul sword, he immediately felt the terrifying Legion of Doom. Although he could not see the situation, however, through the soul sword, he could clearly feel the existence of the Legion of Doom. This was a very mysterious feeling. Through the soul sword's consciousness, there were only two colors in the current world. One was white, the other was black. And the huge black color was the Legion of Doom. Yang Dingtian didn't even wait for his body to reach Cloud Heaven City. He immediately controlled the soul sword and used the shocking sword soul. Infinite swords returned to origin. And then tens of thousands of giant swords flew over from the 9 heavens. In an instant, the entire dome was destroyed. The power of this Naga royalty sword soul was even greater than that of the Naga Shuang in the Empire of Darkness. In just a few moments, the entire dome and the chaos demonic formation had been completely destroyed. When the infernal queen undead concubine saw this, she was completely dumbfounded. What was going on? Didn't the sword spirit of the Naga royalty only have one attack? Wasn't Yang Dingtian unable to use the Naga royalty sword soul? Didn't he go looking for Naga Shuanger? Why was this 10,000 swords returned to origin even more terrifying than the fatal strike from the Empire of Darkness? However, this wasn't the time to be shocked. Queen Devil Queen's sharp sword suddenly pressed against Shura Vulture's neck. She said coldly, "I don't care what you're thinking now. Revive the Dark Dragon and the Dark Demonic Dragon immediately. Otherwise, I'll kill you immediately." The moment the Naga royalty sword soul appeared, Shura Vulture was undoubtedly the most ecstatic. Yang Dingtian had finally returned, and he was so powerful. He actually used such a powerful Naga royalty sword soul, which meant that he could protect her. Then she could betray him, just as she was happily planning how to betray him, and return to Yang Dingtian's side. Suddenly, a sharp sword was pressed against her neck. She had decided to betray him and return to Yang Dingtian's side. However, Queen Devil Queen threatened her with her life, so she would still compromise. After all, life was more important. So she began to revive the shattered Dark Dragon and the Dark Demonic Dragon. As she resurrected, her heart was filled with infinite uneasiness. Yang Dingtian, don't blame me, I was forced. If I didn't do this, I would have died. You don't want to see me die, right? In Shura Vulture's entanglement, countless dark dragons were resurrected one after another. But the speed of their resurrection was far inferior to the speed of their destruction. The sword soul of Naga royalty, 10,000 swords returned to origin, was completely endless. Tens of thousands of giant swords slashed crazily, completely covering the entire dark dome. In the blink of an eye, hundreds of dark dragons were shattered. Thousands of dark demonic dragons were shattered. Shura Vulture didn't need to go easy on them. She desperately tried to resurrect them, but she couldn't resurrect even 1/10 of them. Then, Queen Devil Queen watched helplessly as the incomparably powerful dome above her head. The most powerful Legion of Doom in history. Nearly 10,000 dark dragons, and more than 100,000 dark demonic dragons. Like snow under the scorching sun, they melted quickly. In just a few minutes. Bang! The last dark dragon, Dark Demonic Dragon, was smashed into pieces and turned into ashes. The entire dome, the entire Chaos Demonic Array, disappeared without a trace. However, the attack of the Naga royalty sword soul still didn't stop. Countless giant swords plowed the Legion of Doom on the ground crazily. Yang Dingtian simply stopped his body and stood directly at his original position. He used his consciousness to control the soul swords and launched a fatal attack. He was shocked to find that his consciousness could be divided into countless parts. He could actually control the countless sword lights of 10,000 swords returned to origin. In the countless Legion of Doom, those huge black spots should be the war behemoths of the Empire of Darkness. Whoosh 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 whoosh. The terrifying Naga royal clan's sword light suddenly shot past. Suddenly, the war behemoths that were hundreds of meters long, the war behemoths that even a saint-level expert had to kill for half an hour to destroy, the war behemoths that hundreds and thousands of cannonballs couldn't do anything to. After being shot by a Naga royalty sword soul, in an instant it was shattered and turned into ashes. That incomparably sturdy body, that incomparably powerful energy was useless. Just like that, the Queen Devil Queen, after the dark dragons and dark evil dragons were all wiped out, she watched helplessly as countless war behemoths were instantly turned into ashes. Immediately after, the burrowing demon dragon that hadn't launched an attack, yet destroyed the earth dragons. In an instant, it was cut into countless pieces by the sword lights, and then pierced through, instantly shattering into pieces. In the end, countless world annihilation barbarian army, and countless world annihilation barbarian cavalry. They were pierced through by countless giant sword lights. They were also shattered into pieces, group by group, and evaporated into thin air. At this moment, the Queen Devil Queen had already given up on her actions. All the evil spirit martial artists stared at this scene in horror. All the powerhouses of the human countries and the Mermaid Empire watched this scene in horror. This scene was too gorgeous, too shocking, and even too dreamy. How is this possible? Nearly 10,000 dark dragons, hundreds of thousands of dark evil dragons, tens of thousands of war behemoths, countless burrowing demon dragons, and destruction earth dragons. Tens of millions of Legion of Doom. What kind of powerful energy was this? Even if the Naga race came personally, they would need at least a team of thousands of Naga to destroy this Legion of Doom? But just one soul sword had done it. From an energy point of view, this was impossible. It didn't make sense at all. Unfortunately, this world was so unreasonable. That was because the sword spirit of the Naga royalty didn't rely on energy to destroy countless Legion of Doom. Instead, it relied on the attribute of energy. Just like in some legends, vampires were extremely afraid of ultraviolet rays. Was a beam of ultraviolet rays powerful? No, it wasn't powerful at all. However, even a very powerful vampire would be instantly turned into ashes after being hit by ultraviolet rays. This was an energy counter. And coincidentally, the energy attribute of the Naga royalty sword spirit was the counter to the energy attribute of the Legion of Doom. Therefore, a single soul sword was enough to wipe out countless Armageddon legions. It was like countless ice and snow armies. As long as the sun rose into the sky, they would all melt. There was no need to shatter them one by one. In short, whether it was evil ways or the human countries, they were all dumbfounded and shocked as they watched the most exaggerated and shocking scene in history. Countless golden giant swords swept across hundreds of miles. Then countless Legion of Doom were all turned into ashes. Wave after wave, piece after piece. Hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. The incomparably powerful Legion of Doom seemed to have turned into clay figurines. A huge amount of seawater surged past and melted in an instant. Although everyone was stunned, many people in the human countries still didn't forget to do one thing. They took out the recording jade and recorded this incomparably gorgeous scene in front of them, because this might be the first and only time in history that they would see such a shocking scene. It needed to be preserved forever. And this scene would also be remembered by the entire human countries. This was the true savior. After an unknown amount of time, the killing of the Naga royalty sword spirit stopped, because the World Extermination Army was completely wiped out. That's right, completely wiped out. Then countless huge golden sword lights began to gather. Finally, they condensed into a 1,000-meter-long giant sword. Then, this giant sword began to shrink and shrink. It turned into a soul sword that was only about 4 feet long. It was Yang Dingtian's soul sword that was close to the emperor grade. At this moment, it was gently floating there. This should be the most powerful soul sword in the world. It was also the most powerful soul sword in history. Crown Prince Li Ming, young Master Dong Li, and even the Devil Queen's deceased concubine should all be drooling over him, although they couldn't use it after taking it over. However, snatching it so that Yang Dingtian couldn't use it was the greatest use. Therefore they should snatch it. However, they didn't dare, and they knew that it was impossible to snatch it. Just like how no one could snatch away Queen Devil Queen's soul sword. The World Extermination Army was completely wiped out. And in the distance, Yang Dingtian's figure quickly arrived. Beside him was a woman with a devilish figure. Chapter 995. This Doomsday War had created many unprecedented events. The Tiando League was unprecedentedly united and powerful. And the Legion of Doom was unprecedentedly powerful. Of course, all of this could not compare to another record. That was the Doomsday War ended so quickly. The Legion of Doom was wiped out so quickly. The attack of the Naga royalty sword soul, from the beginning to the end, should have taken less than 15 minutes. Countless Legion of Doom were like vampires from hell that had encountered the scorching sun. They were all instantly turned into ashes and evaporated into thin air. Therefore, Yang Dingtian the Savior had prepared for many years for the Doomsday War. He had created countless weapons, formed tens of millions of troops, evacuated 200 million people, and abandoned countless cities and villages. He had completely exhausted all his efforts. In the end, for the sake of the Naga royalty sword soul, he had spent an unknown amount of time in the meditation world. Perhaps 200 years or 300 years. His beard was almost a foot long, and half of his hair was white. Then at the last moment, he finally returned to Cloud Sky City. Then this Naga royalty sword soul, which had taken hundreds of years to develop, completely ended the Doomsday War in less than 15 minutes, and wiped out the Legion of Doom. Therefore, before Yang Dingtian arrived, the Doomsday War had already ended. The Legion of Doom had already been wiped out. Yang Dingtian slowly flew above Cloud Sky City, and gently waved his hand. Instantly, the soul sword that was close to the Emperor Grade flew directly into his palm. When everyone saw Yang Dingtian's current appearance, they were first puzzled because they could no longer recognize him. Could this half-white-haired, bearded man in front of them be Sect Master Yang Dingtian? He was not even 30 years old, and it had not been more than a month since he left Cloud Sky City. Why did he look so old? After confirming that he was Yang Dingtian, everyone's hearts surged and their eyes stung. Their entire bodies were so excited that they wanted to tremble and tremble. The Battle of Armageddon, which lasted less than a month, was a huge ordeal for the entire human world. But now it seemed that it was the real torture for Yang Dingtian. Although he wasn't on the battlefield, his battlefield was much more difficult and torturous. At this time, countless soldiers of the Council of Light slowly walked out of the ruins of the city wall and climbed out. Every single one of them was stained with blood. However, more and more soldiers walked out. Although the Great Cloud Sky City had fallen and countless soldiers had died, because the Earth Dragon of Destruction did not attack, the city walls of the Great Cloud Sky City did not collapse, and the mountain defense line did not collapse. There were still a large number of soldiers who managed to survive. Countless surviving soldiers came out in a dense crowd. He looked up at Yang Dingtian in the air. In this war, many people were able to persevere because they believed that Yang Dingtian would return as the king and save the world. All the soldiers and martial artists clearly knew that they couldn't win by relying on their own strength. Their mission was to persevere and not let the entire world be destroyed before Yang Dingtian returned. However, just now, when the martial arts legion was about to be killed and Cloud Sky City had completely fallen, there were really many people in despair, and many people even lost hope in Yang Dingtian. However, Yang Dingtian came back at the most critical moment. Moreover, in less than a quarter of an hour, he used an incomparably heaven-defying method to instantly destroy the entire Legion of Doom. He completed the most magnificent reversal. Long live Sect Master Yang Dingtian. At first, there were only a few people shouting. Then more and more people shouted again. Not only the people on the ground, but also the martial arts masters floating in the air began to shout. In the end, millions of people shouted in unison. Long live Yang Dingtian, long live Yang Dingtian. Long live Sect Master Yang Dingtian, long live, long live. Yang Dingtian trembled all over. He gritted his teeth and held back the tears in his eyes. He said in a low and hoarse voice, "Long live the human empire." In his heart, he was incomparably glad, incomparably afraid, and incomparably terrified. The entire doomsday battle had already begun for more than 20 days. According to his imagination, the human country should have been completely destroyed. According to his imagination, the human country should not even be able to last for a day. Facing the terrifying Legion of Doom, the human armies should have no way to do anything and would only be killed in an instant. However, the performance of the human armies completely exceeded his imagination. They actually lasted for more than 20 days. Although the victory of this doomsday battle was because of his Naga royalty sword soul. However, the strong resistance of the human countries was equally important. Yang Dingtian looked at his master, Dongfang Minmi, and said in a hoarse voice, "Master, I'm still a little late." Dongfang Minmi was so excited that he couldn't control himself and shook his head desperately. Yang Dingtian looked at the injured mermaid queen and couldn't help but step forward and gently caress her belly. "Your child is fine. As long as I don't die, she will be fine." The mermaid queen Violet said, "Yang Dingtian, that day when you left me in a fit of anger, if I still can't do it, I won't have the face to see you." The mermaid queen said, "But how did you become so old and so ugly?" Yang Dingtian, "I came in a hurry and forgot to shave." "Your Excellency Yang Dingtian, I trust you have been well since we last met." The Queen Devil Queen collected the shock in her heart and said slowly, "Don't just talk about love, you should also talk about old times with us, your old friends." Yang Dingtian looked at the Queen Devil Queen and said, "Master Su Wu, when I find a way to completely destroy the evil spirits, I can save you and Bing Ling, and completely destroy the evil ways." "No, I am now Queen Devil Queen very good," the Devil Queen said slowly. "Your Naga royalty sword spirit is very powerful. You didn't go to Naga Shuang?" Yang Dingtian smiled and said, "I think it is safer to rely on my own strength." The Queen Devil Queen said, "I am very curious. How did you completely control the power of the Naga royalty sword spirit?" Yang Dingtian smiled and said, "You also know that my sword spirit consciousness is still very young. So, I recomprehended the realm of gods and wrote a new scroll, directly using my consciousness to control the soul sword, and used 10,000 swords returned to origin." Suddenly, the Queen Devil Queen's expression changed dramatically. Others might not be able to understand, but she could easily feel how difficult and terrifying the things that were involved were. It was even a field that she and the Demon King Wentian did not touch. No wonder Yang Dingtian had become so old. It was obvious that he had been in the realm of meditation for who knows how many years. "Congratulations," the Queen Devil Queen said. "But even if you have the Naga royalty sword spirit, you still can't do anything to us? There are thousands of us, and all of us have evil spirits and immortal bodies." Yang Dingtian said, "Yes, so the revolution is not successful. Comrade, you need to work hard. I will definitely find a way to break the evil spirits." The Queen Devil Queen said, "I advise you don't be wishful thinking." Yang Dingtian said, "In fact, I already have a certain way. Once I succeed, it will be easy to disintegrate and destroy your evil spirit energy." "Ha ha ha, big words are not slanderous." The Queen Devil Queen laughed and said, "Then, I want to ask, from which aspect do you plan to destroy the evil spirits?" "The fallen black dragon, the fallen silver dragon," Yang Dingtian said directly. As soon as these words came out, the Queen Devil Queen's expression changed dramatically. Then the Devil Queen said with a smile, "Very good direction. Unfortunately, the level of the fallen black dragon and the fallen silver dragon is almost comparable to the god of chaos. You, a mere Yang Dingtian, are not qualified to be involved." Yang Dingtian replied, "Then let's see how it goes." The Queen Devil Queen restrained her smile and said, "Yang Dingtian, do you know that ending the Doomsday War and destroying all the Legion of Doom may not be a good thing for you?" Yang Dingtian said, "I would like to hear the details." The Queen Devil Queen said, "We have many trump cards in our hands. The Legion of Doom may be the weakest one. Now that this card is gone, you are forcing us to play the next trump card. The Legion of Doom may only destroy countless people, people who have nothing to do with you. And our next trump card may involve your family, your wife, and your children. Yang Dingtian took a deep breath and did not speak. With a burst of anger in his heart, his consciousness controlled the near emperor-grade soul sword and attacked fiercely. Whoosh 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 whoosh. Suddenly countless 1,000-meter-long Naga royalty sword souls shot out. They stabbed wildly towards the evil spirit army. Suddenly, the bodies of countless evil spirit warriors were shattered into pieces and turned into ashes. Only the Xian meridians, sea of qi, brain, and heart that were protected by the evil spirit were left. Even a half-step saint expert could not resist. There were only 3 people who were not involved in this. One was Dongfang Bingling. Her body was, after all, his beloved wife. The other was Queen Devil Queen. Her body was, after all, Piaoling of nothingness. And the other was, of course, the Shura vulture. At this moment, of course, she wanted to immediately run to Yang Dingtian's side. Because now that Yang Dingtian was so powerful, he should be able to protect her. However, she did not dare to do so, because the Queen Devil Queen could easily take her life. Therefore, she could only communicate with Yang Dingtian with her eyes behind his back. After using the Naga royalty sword soul to turn most of the evil spirit warriors into ashes, Yang Dingtian slowly said to the Queen Devil Queen, "I will be waiting for your next card at any time, whether it is the Little Western Paradise, the Underworld Empire, or other higher places." The Queen Devil Queen smiled and said, "You will see it soon. Let's go." Then, the Queen Devil Queen led thousands of evil spirit warriors and quickly flew back to the Empire of Darkness. Yang Dingtian was extremely unwilling, but before he found a way to destroy the evil spirits, he could not do anything to this group of evil spirit warriors. Even the Naga royalty sword soul could only destroy their bodies, but it could not do anything to the evil spirit energy. After the Queen Devil Queen left, Dongfang Minmi said, "Little Tian, quickly go to the northwest Qin city. The Naga Empire's Queen Hai Exan is leading another Legion of Doom to attack the northwest Qin city." As soon as these words came out, Yang Dingtian was shocked. There was actually another battlefield. Immediately, Yang Dingtian said to Neru, "Please stay here and protect my masters in case the Queen Devil Queen makes a comeback. I will go to the northwest Qin city." "Okay." Neru nodded. Yang Dingtian did not introduce Neru to anyone, and no one asked who this golden-masked woman with the devilish figure was. Next, Yang Dingtian still followed the same plan. The speed at which he flew to the northwest Qin city was too slow. Chapter 996. However, when Yang Dingtian arrived at Cloud Sky City, she was already gone. Hai Exan wasn't stupid. After seeing the heaven-defying Naga royalty sword soul, she immediately fled after a short moment of shock. She definitely wouldn't stay here and wait to be killed. At this moment, Qin Wancho stepped forward and gave Yang Dingtian a big hug. Then Duan Rian, Kuei and the others. They all took turns to step forward. Yang Dingtian didn't know how many people he had hugged. The last body was especially soft. He looked down and actually saw Third Lady Gongsuan's face. This was Qin Ji. "Why are you here?" Yang Dingtian asked in surprise. Qin Ji said, "This is my home. Why can't I be here?" Then, she pursed her lips and smiled. "This hug. Why don't you feel like you're stepping on a poisonous snake? It seems that this Third Lady Gongsuan's body is indeed different." "Nonsense," Yang Dingtian said. Then he asked Qin Wancho, "Where's Hai Exan?" "She took a few dozen Nagas and ran away." Qin Wancho said, "When your Naga royalty sword soul just started killing the Legion of Doom, she ran away. That was more than a quarter of an hour's run." Yang Dingtian immediately used the demonic spirit Mist Cloak Flash and chased towards the north. Then, he controlled the soul sword again and flew towards the Naga Empire like lightning. If they encountered a powerful energy body, the soul sword would be able to sense it. Yang Dingtian chased towards the north while the soul sword chased towards the northwest. He chased for a few thousand miles, and had already reached the northernmost point of the northwest continent. And the soul sword had already chased for more than 10,000 miles. There was no trace of Queen Hai Exan at all, nor was there any sign of the Nagas. Obviously, Queen Hai Xian did not return to the Naga Empire. She must have been taken away by the Queen Devil Queen's magic wand. She must have dug a hole in the ground, melted the dark matter, and entered the Empire of Darkness. Queen Hai Xian definitely wouldn't dare to return to the Naga Empire. Only the Empire of Darkness was safe enough for her. Despite his unwillingness, Yang Dingtian could only return to the northwest Qin city. At night, in the sky above the ruins of Cloud Sky City, Yang Dingtian announced in front of millions of survivors, in front of the experts of the Mermaid Empire, and in front of all the higher-ups of the Council of Light, the Legion of Doom had been completely annihilated. They had won the Great War of Armageddon. Then there were cheers from the millions of people, following which, tens of thousands of winged cavalry warriors spread the news of Yang Dingtian's return, the annihilation of the Legion of Doom, and the victory of the human nations to every corner of the human nations. Then the entire human country became a city that never sleeps. In Ironforge City, in the ruins of Shijing City, survivors flooded the streets. Countless fireworks bloomed in the night sky. In the southwest continent, it became a sea of revelry. In Zhongjing City, in Zhongzhou State, countless flags and banners flooded the streets again. The Council of Light Corps was on high alert, as if they were facing a formidable enemy. In the end, they found that the banners were filled with content such as "Long live Yang Dingtian" and "Long live the Council of Light." Moreover, countless fireworks bloomed in the sky above Zhongjing City. One had to know that these people had always said that Yang Dingtian was the culprit of the war, and that he would lead the way for the Temple of Annihilation. A few days ago, Dark Xiaolong had indeed given these people a hard time. Of course, the most important thing was that Yang Dingtian's return and the annihilation of the Legion of Doom had instantly changed their stance. The war that they were most worried about did not descend on Zhongzhou State. This was the most important thing. One had to know that there were many pictures on the Chaos Times. The city of Beiping, the land of chaos, had completely turned into ruins. Although the entire Zhongzhou State was attacked by tens of thousands of Dark Xiaolong from the sky, Zhongzhou State was rich. Most of the houses in the cities were made of solid stone. After being attacked, although the losses were not significant, they had still recovered completely. Only a few people noticed that Yang Dingtian's speech was very short, and he did not say that the Doomsday War had ended. The first stage of the Doomsday War has ended, Yang Dingtian said. But the entire Doomsday War is not over yet. As soon as these words came out, all the higher-ups of the Council of Light were stunned. The Legion of Doom had been completely annihilated. How could he say that the Doomsday War was not over yet? Yang Dingtian said, "Indeed, the Legion of Doom of the Empire of Darkness has been completely annihilated. Even if there is a part of the Legion of Doom of the Empire of Darkness left, it will not help. Then the danger of the next war will come from two places. The first place is the Underworld Empire. The second place is the Little Western Paradise." Yang Dingtian put down his wine glass and said, "No one knows how many undead there are in the Underworld Empire, but there may be billions or even more. Because all the undead who died in the human countries in the past thousands of years have gathered there. Moreover, the devil Rakshasa who was chased by the Naga at that time also lived in the underground of the nether plane." As soon as these words came out, everyone's expression changed dramatically. The Empire of Darkness and the Legion of Doom were only tens of millions, close to hundreds of millions. But the Underworld Empire had more than billions of undead. Yang Dingtian continued, "I have attended the Ghost City banquet of the Underworld Empire. The entire nether plane has saint-level undead lords and Shura lords, close to 100. There are also half-saints, close to 1,000. As soon as these words came out, everyone present felt a sense of suffocation. Now that the human countries and the Mermaid Empire had allied, there were many powerhouses. However, there were only 3 saint-level powerhouses. There were only a dozen or so half-saints. In the Underworld Empire, there were close to 100 saint-level powerhouses, and close to 1,000 half-saints. This power was simply too terrifying. Not to mention, any weapons of the Council of Light were useless against the undead army. The undead were only afraid of one kind of attack, and that was electric attacks. At present, In the entire Council of Light, only Yang Dingtian had electric attacks. Yang Dingtian said, "Moreover, now the entire underworld empire has fallen into the hands of the demon king Wentian's soul doppelganger. It has taken over the netherworld ghost fire and become the new netherworld ghost emperor. So as long as he gives the order, billions of undead can surge in and invade the human countries." The scene in the imagination was really more like the end of the world. Especially in the movies on Earth, the feeling of a zombie invasion. Yang Dingtian said, "Of course we are more relieved. There is a strong energy barrier between the underworld empire and the human countries. All the undead and Shura in the underworld empire, no matter how strong they are, cannot pass through this barrier. So, under normal circumstances, they will never be able to enter the human countries." In this way, everyone was slightly relieved, Yang Dingtian said. But now that the Legion of Doom has been wiped out, the Demon King Wentian will set his eyes on the underworld empire. Evil ways will definitely build a passage to allow the undead of the underworld empire to enter the human countries. So the key is what they are going to do. How to let countless undead enter the human countries. This is the problem we have to think about. Then Yang Dingtian said, "In addition to thinking about how the evil ways will let the undead enter the human countries, our next thing is to study electric attack weapons. I already have the relevant ideas on this, and will organize them soon. If a second doomsday war breaks out and billions of undead enter the human countries, we will not be as passive as we were in the first doomsday war." After taking a sip of wine, Yang Dingtian said, "The underworld empire is the evil ways' first choice to launch a second doomsday war. However, if the evil ways cannot solve the problem of the undead entering the human countries, then they will have a second choice, which is the Little Western Paradise." Everyone looked at Yao Zi, Bolu, and the other fox demons. Yang Dingtian said, "As everyone knows, the fox demons in the Little Western Paradise have a lifespan of thousands of years. They were tempted by the fallen silver dragon and became a demigod candidate. So they are very powerful. According to the relevant data, there should be dozens of saint-level experts in the Little Western Paradise. However, this number is very vague and unclear because the Little Western Paradise has not had a military conflict for a long time. As for the saint-level experts, there are countless of them. In short, this is a civilization that is much more powerful than us in terms of martial arts. Everyone knew that because Yao Zi was very young in the Fox Demon clan. A Wen and a Wu were merely servants. But now they were all 14th level experts. So the strength of the Fox Demons could be imagined, Yang Dingtian said. However, the possibility of the Little Western Paradise invading the human countries is very small. Even if Wentian's soul has already taken over the body of the chairman of the Little Western Paradise. However, the entire Little Western Paradise is in the hands of the 9 great tribes. Currently, the Fox Demons have no desire to invade the human countries, because the concentration of Xianqi here is much lower. If the Fox Demons enter the human countries, their cultivation and Xian meridians will be damaged to a certain extent. Moreover, as long as the door to the human countries is guarded, the Little Western Paradise will not be able to enter the human countries. In short, launch the second doomsday battle. The undead of the underworld empire is the first choice of evil ways, and the Little Western Paradise is the last choice. Yang Dingtian said. So, all we have to do next is to prevent the second doomsday battle. Completely eliminate the possibility of the undead army entering the human countries. That night, after a simple banquet, Yang Dingtian took Neru and flew directly to the Taboo continent. This time, Yang Dingtian rode the Demon Vulture King again. It had been a long time since he saw Aja. Yang Dingtian even joked with it that after the war, he would let it and his wife have a little demon vulture. The Demon Vulture King Aja was a little embarrassed, but it was more depressed. Because in this doomsday battle, facing the arrogance of the Dark Dragon army, almost all the Demon Vulture army could only hide and could not fight back. The Demon Vulture King Aja felt very vexed. Yang Dingtian touched its neck to comfort it. A few hours later, Yang Dingtian and Nera flew to the sky above the Taboo continent. At this time, Wu Yu and Yao Li were still sitting with their eyes closed, putting their heads at the door of the human countries. Feeling Yang Dingtian's aura, Wu Yu opened her beautiful eyes and smiled. "You're back?" Then her gaze fell on Neru, and her delicate body suddenly trembled. Chapter 997. When Nera left, Wu Yu was no longer young. It was precisely because she felt that her daughter could be independent that Nera chose to leave and follow in the footsteps of her lover to redeem her sins. Therefore, Wu Yu still had some memories of her mother. Of course, at this time, Nera was wearing a golden mask and a very hot tight-fitting mermaid costume. Even if Wu Yu was her daughter, it would be very difficult for her to recognize her at once. However, Nera's gaze could almost betray her everything. That kind of slightly guilty, but more of a longing gaze let Wu Yu know at once that this was her mother. Then, Nera took off the mask on her face. A breathtakingly beautiful face instantly rushed forward and invaded the air. At this time, Yao Li on the side also recognized her. Although Yao Li was still very young when Nera was the chairman, she still had memories. The successive chairmen were all influential figures in Little Western Paradise. And Nera was a rare female chairman. And for a long time, she was known as the #1 beauty of Little Western Paradise. Moreover, she once gave birth to offspring with the Speechless clan. Therefore, Yao Li naturally had memories of her. Wu Yu's beautiful face trembled slightly, and she said, "Mother." Nera was stunned, and then quickly nodded. Next, the two of them were at a loss. As for the hug that they imagined, it did not happen. Both women were in high positions, and both of them were not good at expressing their feelings. At this time, after hesitating, Yao Li stepped forward and bowed. "Yao Li of the Golden clan greets Madame Neru." Nera looked at Yao Li gently and said, "Hello, little girl of the Golden clan." Next, Wu Yu and Neru, the mother and daughter, could not find anything to say. They fell into a warm and somewhat awkward atmosphere. In the end, Wu Yu looked at Yang Dingtian and said, "Did you succeed?" Yang Dingtian nodded and said, "I succeeded." Wu Yu said, "What about the human countries?" Of course, Wu Yu knew about the outbreak of the Doomsday War. This was because Yao Li often traveled back and forth between the Forbidden Continent Sea region and the human countries. However, the gateway to the human kingdom was too important. Even during Cloud Sky City's most dangerous time, Wu Yu didn't leave. This was because if the Skull Hall was lost, the consequences would be unimaginable. Yang Dingtian. The Legion of Doom of the Empire of Darkness has been annihilated. The first phase of the Armageddon War is over for now. That's good. Wu Yu wasn't actually very concerned about the situation in the human world. After asking, she immediately changed the topic that she was most concerned about. "Did you use the Naga royalty sword spirit to destroy the Legion of Doom?" Yang Dingtian nodded. "Yes." Wu Yu's breathing suddenly quickened, and her beautiful eyes lit up as she said, How did you do it?" "How did you use your consciousness to unleash the soul skill of your soul sword? Did you succeed in writing that simulator of yours?" Yang Dingtian shook his head and said, "Although that simulator is much smaller, it's still too difficult. I first wrote the human version of 10,000 Swords Return to Origin, and then differentiated it from the soul sword version of 10,000 Swords Return to Origin. Then section by section I wrote the converter. In the end, this conversion scroll was more than 3 times larger than the 10,000 Swords Return to Origin scroll. However, I still succeeded in the end, but it took a very, very long time." Only then did Wu Yu notice that Yang Dingtian's hair was almost white. "You look older than me." Wu Yu smiled at him. Yang Dingtian nodded and said, "In the future, I will always be older than you." Wu Yu gently grabbed his hair and said, "This is good. The two of us are more compatible." Yang Dingtian heard this and couldn't help but be stunned. Wu Yu said, "I promise that as long as you succeed in this divine realm, I will give you my child. I'll bear your child. I'm a woman of my word." Then, Wu Yu turned to Neru and said, "Mother, if you come over now, we might not have a child for you to raise. The earliest we can do so is next year or the year after." Neru looked a bit embarrassed. "The main thing is that I stayed there for too long, and found that there wasn't much point. Also, I miss you a bit. When these words came out, Wu Yu's beautiful face trembled slightly. Then, Wu Yu looked at Yang Dingtian. What are you going to do next? Yang Dingtian. The next two things are to stop the undead army from entering the human countries. The second is to find the Naga Shuang. Wukong said, Naga Shuanger, Emo Rakshasa is of great use to the Nether Plains Azura clan. No matter how strong this race is, they have an innate fear of the Naga. However, the Naga doesn't seem to be of much use to the undead. Unlike the Empire of Darkness and the Legion of Doom, the Naga's energy is a terrible counter. Yang Dingtian. Shuang, she is my wife. Also, she must not fall into the hands of the demon king Wentian. Wu Yu fell silent. Yang Dingtian. But right now we need to do a small thing. We need to destroy the Serpentine Empire's holy land and rescue all of Poise's trusted Serpentine people. If High Exion is there, it'll be even better. We can kill her in one fell swoop. Wu Yu's eyes lit up, but she didn't say anything. Neri said, Wu Yu, you go with him. I will guard the door to the human countries in the Skull Hall. Also, the two of us will take turns guarding it in the future. Wu Yu was delighted. Thank you, mother. She was indeed in a good mood. Although she spent most of her time in the Netherworld Sea, sometimes sitting quietly for a few days and nights. Therefore, guarding the door to the human countries was nothing to her. But it was still too boring and too unfree. However, there were only 2 saint-level powerhouses before, and one of them had to guard the door to the human countries. The mermaid Queen Violets couldn't be counted on. She was a crazy woman and definitely couldn't stand this kind of boredom. Nera was the best candidate. Her cultivation was strong, and she could stay in the Little Western Paradise's priest association for hundreds of years. Therefore, guarding the door to the human countries was a piece of cake. Little Yowli, if you miss your companions in Cloud Sky City, you can go back for a few days. Nera said, I'll be here. Yowli looked at Nera with admiration and shook her head. I'll stay here and accompany you. Yang Dingtian. And Wu Yu rode the Demon Vulture King and flew towards the Serpentine Empire. Wu Yu leaned gently in Yang Dingtian's arms and suddenly said, Thank you for bringing my mother here. I suddenly feel like a girl. Oh, I feel like a little woman. Yang Dingtian didn't say anything and just smiled. Wu Yu raised her face, stroked Yang Dingtian's face, and then gently kissed Yang Dingtian's face and lips. You're really amazing, you know? You actually completed the writing of that scroll. This means that you have truly mastered the divine realm and the most profound part of the martial arts civilization. Yang Dingtian said, Actually, I didn't complete it alone. The Demon Fox Priest in the Priest Association helped me a lot. I promised you that I would give birth to your child. Wu Yu said, Then shall we give birth now? Yang Dingtian trembled, and then the Demon Vulture King Azeo trembled. This isn't urgent, and Azeo can understand us. Also, I haven't taken a bath for a long time. Yang Dingtian said. Wu Yu sniffed hard and said, Then I like it even more. I like men full of smell. As long as I'm fragrant, it's fine. Then, Wu Yu kissed Yang Dingtian's lips and kissed him deeply. The wisdom of men really fascinates me. Wu Yu panted and said, How about we find an island and make out first? Is this okay? Yang Dingtian said in a trembling voice. Wu Yu said, But I can't help it. Then, Wu Yu pushed Yang Dingtian off the back of the Demon Vulture King Azeo, and the two fell directly on a small island on the sea. Queen Devil Queen, sitting on the dark throne in the Skirich imperial capital, didn't speak for a long time. The Demon King Wentian had already left the Empire of Darkness to look for Naga Shuang. Now, Queen Devil Queen had become the supreme leader of the entire Empire of Darkness. As for the thousands of evil spirit martial artists below, they were all silent. Yang Dingtian had performed the return of the king at the last moment, and then killed all the Legion of Doom in such a thunderous manner. This was a huge blow to the Infernal Queen, Undead Concubine, and the Evil Dao. This wasn't even a blow brought about by the loss of the Legion of Doom. In fact, there were still many Legion of Doom in the Empire of Darkness. But the Legion of Doom had lost all meaning. A legion of doom that was countered and killed in an instant was meaningless no matter how many there were. The main reason was that Yang Dingtian had returned as the king and turned the tide. The aura and omen he brought were very frightening. If he could even control the sword soul of the Naga royalty, what else could Yang Dingtian not do? Moreover, the Great War of Destruction had failed once again, and it had been a complete failure. Did this confirm the theory of destiny, that the evil ways would definitely lose, and the Tiando League would definitely win? Yang Dingtian had created such a terrifying miracle. Did this mean that Yang Dingtian was the true son of destiny, the spokesperson of the god of chaos? Did this mean that Yang Dingtian was invincible? Moreover, everyone had heard Yang Dingtian's words. He was researching a way to destroy the energy of the evil spirits, and he already had a direction. Up until now, Yang Dingtian had accomplished everything that he said he wanted to do, no matter how difficult or impossible it was. Did this mean that it was the same for the matter of destroying the evil spirits? If that was the case, the end had come for the thousands of people present who had an immortal body. The Devil Empress' deceased concubine broke the silence and said indifferently, "Azura Spirit Vulture, Yang Dingtian has returned as a king. Are you very excited?" Shura Vulture lowered his head and said, "I'm not." Queen Devil Queen said, "Don't tell me you didn't think of running to his side immediately?" Shura Vulture said, "Absolutely not. Everything I have was given to me by His Majesty the Demon King. I will never forget my roots." Although Vulture was cursing viciously in his heart, his mouth was still full of lies. He didn't even need to write a draft. We lost the Great War of Destruction. The Legion of Doom was completely wiped out. How do you feel? Queen Devil Queen asked. Shura Vulture said, "We didn't lose. I know that His Majesty the Demon King has a lot of trump cards in his hands. It's just that these trump cards were prepared for the god of chaos. Yang Dingtian is not qualified to receive these trump cards at all. Now he has the Naga royalty sword soul and destroyed our Legion of Doom. However, any one of our trump cards will be enough to annihilate his human kingdom." Good, well said. Demon Queen Dead Concubine clapped her hands and said, "In the Battle of Armageddon, you were supposed to be the cornerstone of the army. Because of Yang Dingtian's return, all the previous efforts of the Great War of Destruction were in vain. How do you feel?" "I was born to be useful. I firmly believe that the Great War of Destruction is not over. I will definitely shine in the new war." Shura Vulture cursed even more in his heart, but his mouth was smeared with honey, flattery, one sentence after another. "Good," Queen Devil Queen said. "Well said." Then she slowly looked at everyone and said, "Vulture is right. We have countless trump cards in our hands. I once told Yang Dingtian that destroying the Legion of Doom is not necessarily a good thing for them, because we will release even more terrifying forces." Queen Devil Queen's gaze fell on Walingzi's face, and then said, "Our Demon King has many soul doppelgangers. One of the soul doppelgangers is the supreme ruler of the entire underworld empire, the Nether Ghost Emperor. Another doppelganger is the ruler of the Little Western Paradise world, President Yongxi. Another doppelganger is in New Naga, half the leader of New Naga. Since Yang Dingtian made our Legion of Doom go to waste, then let's let him taste our second card. An army of billions of undead, thousands of half-saint undead, hundreds of saint-level undead, and the monarch of Shura." As soon as these words came out, everyone present was almost suffocated. The Devil Queen, Undead Concubine, stood up slowly and said, "Once the undead army enters the human kingdom, then it will mean the end of the human kingdom. There won't be a single living person left in this world. Yang Dingtian asked for it." Queen Devil Queen clapped her hands. Then, a mysterious person with a first-class evil spirit and a silver mask slowly walked out. This person was the owner of the last first-class evil spirit. Her identity was on the same level as Prince Li Ming, Princess Mu Dan, and young Master Dongli. She was always by the Devil Queen's side, but no one knew who this person was, not even Princess Mu Dan or Prince Li Ming. This person seemed to have suddenly burst out. Queen Devil Queen said, "She is the messenger of the Nether Ghost Emperor. Of course, she has another identity, an identity that made Yang Dingtian extremely shocked. This mysterious person slowly took off her silver mask. Seeing her face, everyone present was shocked. Chapter 998. After this mysterious person took off her silver mask, she revealed a beautiful face that was otherworldly. She was the Dishi Bien who had disappeared for a long time. Previously, she was completely like the ancient tomb sect's little dragon maiden. Her lips seemed to be transparent, and her whole body was cold. So although she was beautiful, she did not have much of a woman's smell. And now, her face was still beautiful, but there was a bit more of a woman's beauty. Even her lips had become tender and alluring. Her originally pale and bloodless face was now tinged with a gorgeous blush. Even her originally thin and delicate body had become plump and curvaceous. Of course, the biggest difference was her eyes. Previously, Dishi Bien's eyes were filled with the purity of a child. At this moment his eyes had become deep and cold. A first-class evil spirit had already changed her greatly. Now, she had become the Netherworld Ghost Emperor's envoy. Dishi Bien looked at the crowd and said, "Devil Queen, are you sure you want many people to hear some words?" Her voice was still Dishi Bien's voice, but her tone had completely changed. The Devil Queen waved her hand and dismissed everyone. "She stay." Dishi Bien pointed at Shura Vulture. A moment later, only Dishi Bien, Devil Queen, and Shura Vulture were left in the Celestial Hall. "Your Majesty Devil Queen, according to the agreement, there was no plan to let the evil spirit army participate in the world-ending war." Dishi Bien said, "It was because countless humans were slaughtered to increase the number of undead in the Underworld Empire that I participated in the world-ending war as an envoy." The Devil Queen said, "Emperor, sure, but you have seen the result of the world-ending war." Dishi Bien said, "According to the Ghost Emperor's plan, all the undead in the Underworld Empire were used to fight the god of chaos a few hundred years later. Now that it has been used, where will the future Ghost Emperor's energy come from?" The Devil Queen said, "But if we don't win the world-ending war, our evil ways will have no future." Dishi Bien frowned and said, "Of course, I am only the Ghost Emperor's envoy. I have no authority to make any decisions. If you want to do anything, you need the Ghost Emperor's decree." The Devil Queen frowned and said, "Don't forget, the Netherworld Ghost Emperor and the Demon King Wentian are the same person. That Devil King Wentian who sits on the throne of darkness is the main body, the true ruler of the evil Tao." Dishi Bien said, "I only obey the orders of Ghost Emperor." The Devil Queen said, "No, you are obeying the dual decree of His Majesty the Demon King and the Netherworld Ghost Emperor. Don't forget, you still have a first-class evil spirit in your body." Dishi Bien said, "Of course I know, but if you want the Underworld Empire to participate in the world-ending war, you still need the Netherworld Ghost Emperor's decree." The Devil Queen said, "Of course I know. I will go to the Underworld Empire and pay a visit to the Wentian Ghost Emperor." Dishi Bien pointed at the Shura Vulture and said, "She will go with me." Although the Infernal Queen frowned, she still nodded. When Yang Dingtian and Wu Yu entered the Dongli grassland, they met up with the Mermaid Queen Violets. The three of them went to the Serpentine Empire's Holy Land to rescue Viper Mo, Viper Z, and the others. At this time, the entire Serpentine Empire's Dongli grassland had withered. Almost all of the half-human race army in the Serpentine Empire had died in the northwest continent. The lucky survivors had fled in all directions and became captives of the Council of Light. Therefore, almost every city and tribe in the Snakeman Empire was filled with a lifeless aura. The remaining half-human race were either working hard or old, young women and children. Queen Poisa established the Serpentine Empire and exhausted 30% of the half-human race's vitality. As for the Sea Heart Queen, she had completely destroyed the half-human race. This half-human race civilization, that had existed for thousands of years, was almost completely wiped out. The surviving half-human race civilization would basically be in the southern barbarian continent. Because of continuous mixing and assimilation, they would completely integrate into the human countries. Yang Dingtian and the other two quickly flew to the sky above the central lake of the Dongli grassland. The Serpentine Empire's holy land was here. However, Yang Dingtian looked over. This huge and beautiful lake had completely dried up. At the bottom of the lake, there used to be an entrance to the Holy Land. Now it had become a huge cave. Yang Dingtian quickly entered the cave, and easily entered the huge Serpentine Empire's Holy Land. After entering, he took a look. Yang Dingtian was instantly stunned. The huge energy shield was gone. Inside, the pyramid formed by tens of millions of people was also gone. All he saw was a ground full of corpses. There were innumerable corpses. There were human corpses and half-human corpses. There were many corpses lying everywhere. There might be millions or tens of millions of corpses. The whole pile of corpses was completely in the shape of a collapsed pyramid. Each of the corpses was extremely terrifying and hideous. There was no flesh on their bodies. They were all skin and bones. Their eye sockets and cheeks were sunken. Yang Dingtian reached out to touch these corpses. Immediately, the skin of the corpses broke open, revealing the bones inside. The bones of these corpses were no longer white. Instead, they were pitch black and would shatter with a touch. The internal organs in the chest and abdomen had been turned into a pile of mud. Not to mention cultivation and energy, even the energy of flesh and blood had been devoured completely, leaving only the remains of corpses. Yang Dingtian kept rummaging. In the end, he found more and more corpses of the Serpentine clan. However, they were all low-level Serpentine clan, and almost none of them had transformed into human form. At the last moment, Queen Hai Xian knew that her Serpentine Empire and the Holy Land could not be saved. Therefore, she directly devoured all the lives in this pyramid. Then she fled. Yang Dingtian searched for a long time, but in the end, he did not find the corpses of Viper Mo and the others. In fact, there was not even a high-level Serpentine clan that had transformed into human form. He could not help but breathe a sigh of relief. I told you Hai Xian is treacherous. She will definitely not wait for death. The Mermaid Queen said coldly. We are just wasting time coming here. Yang Dingtian said. Don't tell me we are going to the Empire of Darkness to kill her? No. The Mermaid Queen Violet said. She will definitely not be in the Empire of Darkness. Yang Dingtian said in surprise. Why? Only the Empire of Darkness can protect her now. The Mermaid Queen said. You don't understand women. Hai Xian has nothing left. It is impossible for her to go to the Empire of Darkness and become a complete vassal and be ordered around by others. She must still be in this world. It is just that when a person hides, it is impossible to find her. Wu Yu nodded and agreed with the Mermaid Queen. He said, the key now is to figure out what Hai Xian wants to do. Take revenge on me. Yang Dingtian said. So will she go against my family? No, that is too narrow-minded. Wu Yu said. What Hai Xian wants is to take back everything from before, and even more. Taking revenge on Yang Dingtian's family can only be done in a moment of anger. It is impossible. Yang Dingtian racked his brains, but he couldn't think of where Queen Hai Xian would go, or what she would do. Wu Yu said. But no matter what, we don't have to pay attention to her for a long time. Perhaps she will completely disappear from this world. She will only reappear in front of us when she has the confidence to do so. Yang Dingtian nodded. In this big show, Hai Xian was a small character from beginning to end. She had never affected the big picture. Since she had disappeared, it wasn't worth spending too much energy on her for the time being. If it wasn't unexpected, Hai Xian should be pursuing incomparably powerful strength. She wanted to completely suppress Yang Dingtian, and even the evil Dao in terms of martial Dao. In the current world, it was impossible to achieve this. Then, all the energy could be used to search for Naga Shuang and the Underworld Empire. Dishi Bian, Queen Devil Queen, and Shura Vulture left the Empire of Darkness and flew to the Underworld Plane. Whoosh! As if their bodies were slightly cold, the three of them entered the dark, hellish Underworld continent. The sky here was always green and purplish-red. The ground was always dark. Even the whole continent seemed to be rotten and smelly. Countless skeletons and spirits of the dead were wandering around their destination. But unlike before, The outermost area of the Underworld Empire was filled with low-level undead. At this time, the Netherworld Ghost Emperor had divided the Underworld Empire into territories. The Underworld Empire's area was about 40 million square kilometers. So, every undead overlord could be given a territory of about 100,000 square kilometers. And every undead overlord could have 10 undead overlords. The ground belonged to the undead. Then the ground belonged to Shura Vulture. The Underworld Empire had changed from a chaotic state to a completely centralized state. The Netherworld Ghost Emperor had become the supreme emperor of these tens of thousands of territories and billions of undead. In the past, there were still humans who could enter the Netherworld Ghost Emperor to hunt the undead. But now only death awaited them. Once any human entered, countless undead would immediately rush in. The undead overlords and undead overlords would also immediately kill the intruders. However, under the leadership of Dishi Bien, no one dared to attack Queen Devil Queen and Shura Vulture. All the undead overlords and undead overlords clearly knew Dishi Bien. She had become the emissary of the Underworld Empire and could represent the will of the Ghost Emperor at any time. Dishi Bien led Devil Queen and Vulture straight into the huge Netherworld Ghost City. The Netherworld Ghost City, which was usually closed, was easily opened by Dishi Bien. The three of them entered the Ghost City and walked up to the Tower of Babel in the center of the Netherworld Ghost City. Then Dishi Bien bowed and said, "Your Majesty Ghost Emperor, Queen Devil Queen requests an audience." Boom! A flame ignited from the Tower of Babel and turned into the face of the Ghost Emperor Wentian. Chapter 999. The huge flame turned into a huge projection of Wentian's body. "Piao Ling, although I miss you, I have to say that your visit is not good news for me," Ghost Emperor Wentian said. "We agreed before that we would contribute a total of 1 billion undead to the world extermination war. In the end, we only contributed a mere 10 million undead. Can I ask why?" Queen Devil Queen said. "The Legion of Doom has been completely wiped out." "What?" Ghost Emperor Wentian's body trembled. He said in shock, "Impossible. Your Legion of Doom has already reached an unimaginable level. The human countries are no match for you. How could they have lost?" Queen Devil Queen said, "Yang Dingtian has returned. Moreover, he brought the sword spirit of the Naga royalty and easily wiped out the Legion of Doom. The power of the Naga royalty has an absolute counter to the Legion of Doom. This kind of counter is even more terrifying than the counter of the lightning element against the undead. It was like the scorching sun burning ice and snow. Countless Legion of Doom melted away in an instant." Ghost Emperor Wentian fell silent. Then he said, "How could Yang Dingtian control the sword spirit of the Naga royalty?" Queen Devil Queen said, "This is his secret. It is not something we can know." Ghost Emperor Wentian said, "Then what do you want?" Queen Devil Queen said, "The undead army will enter the human countries and continue the world extermination war." "Impossible," Wentian Ghost Emperor said. "These countless undead will be of great use to me 200 years later. They are the source of energy for me to ascend to the demigod realm. I can't waste them on the world extermination war." Queen Devil Queen said, "Unfortunately, if Wentian doesn't die, there won't be 200 years later. In at most 20 years, he will wipe us out completely." Wentian Ghost Emperor said, "That's simple, just kill Yang Dingtian." The Devil Queen said, "You can't kill him because he has the greater space technique in his hands. Besides, he was the only one in the world who could make the Naga go into heat. Therefore, the Demon King wants to possess his body and combine with Naga, directly inheriting half of Naga's attribute talents." Ghost Emperor Wentian said, "Then capture his family and children and force Yang Dingtian to submit." The Devil Queen replied, "Yang Dingtian has the greater space technique. He can easily hide his family in a place that we can't reach." Ghost Emperor Wentian was silent for a long time. Suddenly he said, "Piao Ling, although it's true that I'm Wentian's soul clone, I'm not wrong. But I've been independent for nearly 200 years. So you should know what this means. Possessing Yang Dingtian is indeed beneficial to him on the throne of darkness, but it might not be so for me." The Devil Queen said in astonishment, Could it be that you're not the same person? You have to combine again in the end and become the ruler of the world, replacing the god of chaos, the ghost emperor Wuxian sighed. In fact, I don't know if we're still the same person. He expressed his own negative attitude. The infernal queen's dead concubine said. Then, I need to tell you something else. Yang Dingtian currently has something that is extremely fatal to you. The ghost emperor Wuxian laughed. Impossible. No matter how strong Yang Dingtian is, he can't do anything to my underworld empire. In terms of pure martial power, I'm the strongest in the entire world. The Devil Queen said coldly. Don't forget, the real Netherworld Ghost Emperor isn't dead. He's right beside Yang Dingtian. The Ghost Emperor Wentian's expression suddenly changed. The entire Tongtian Tower shook. He said fiercely. Even if that's the case, so what? The Netherworld Ghost Emperor's soul was almost scattered at that time. He was incomparably weak. There's no way he can compete with me for the Underworld Empire, the Devil Queen sneered. Then I'm very sorry. Yang Dingtian once went to the Dark Realm to cultivate. When he was in the second Dark Realm, he encountered the Great Taboo Day. The undead of the ancient era drilled out from the ground one after another. And Yang Dingtian, with the mysterious fire lightning, carried out a frenzied slaughter of the undead. In the end, the Netherworld Ghost Emperor benefited from the energy of these undead. So the real Netherworld Ghost Emperor is much, much stronger than you think. Immediately, the Devil Queen said. When the Netherworld Ghost Emperor recovers to the saint level, it'll be time for him to compete with you for the Underworld Empire. You've been trapped in Tongtian Tower, unable to leave, even if you can command countless undead to fight. When that time comes, you have no chance of winning. Wentian Ghost Emperor fell into silence. The Devil Queen said. So you and I each take what we need. Once again, we launched the World Extermination War. Exterminate 1 billion human citizens, and increase the number of undead in the Underworld Empire. Moreover, you can capture the Netherworld Ghost Emperor and completely annihilate him, eliminating all future troubles. And if we win the World Extermination War, we'll obtain Yang Dingtian's body and the Greater Space Technique. What do you think? Wentian Ghost Emperor was silent for a long time, then shook his head. Our undead and Shura can't escape the energy barrier of the Underworld Empire. It's useless. The Devil Queen said coldly. There must be a way. Because at the place where the undead died, those shamans can summon them from the underworld plane to the place where they died. And we have the most powerful heaven spirit masters. Wentian Ghost Emperor said. Don't tell me you want your heaven spirit masters to go to every place and summon the undead there. That way, even 10 years won't be enough to summon them all. And for such a long time, the undead will be exposed to the sun, and will be annihilated long ago. The Devil Queen said. You must have a way, right? Wentian Ghost Emperor fell into silence. The Devil Queen said. In fact, I know very well that there is a way to let countless undead pass through the energy barrier of the Underworld Empire. Because there is a kind of person who is clearly dead, but lives forever. Say that he is alive, but he was once dead. These people can easily cross the Underworld Empire and the human countries. In the human countries, they are people. In the Underworld Empire, they are regarded as the same kind by the undead. Then the Devil Queen's gaze fell on Dishi Bien and said, this kind of person was once given a part of the Netherworld Ghost Fire, and has the body of an undead person. Dishi Bien and Wulingzi are such undead people. She can even directly devour the energy of the undead, making her cultivation advance by leaps and bounds. I believe that because of this, Dishi Bien fell into your trap, and became your emissary. The undead can attach themselves to her body, and leave the underworld plane. Wentian Ghost Emperor was still silent. The Devil Queen said. The more direct method is to use Wulingzi and Dishi Bien as a channel to connect the Underworld Empire and the human countries, and then use the Shura Vulture of the Heaven Spirit Masters to summon countless undead from the Underworld Empire to the human countries. In this way, countless undead armies can enter the human countries. When the Shura Vulture heard this, its heart suddenly trembled. No wonder after the great defeat of the World Extermination War, the Devil Queen's attitude towards it was better. It turned out that it had a greater use. Ghost Emperor Wentian still did not respond. The Devil Queen slowly said, 200 years ago, you were also a part of the one who dragged me into the abyss of evil. Now I am being stepped on by Yang Dingtian. Are you just going to ignore it? Do you want to rely on your own strength to fight against the god of chaos? Do you not have a part in becoming a god in the future? The Ghost Emperor Wentian said, is there really no other way? Must I mobilize my undead army? For example, directly capturing Yang Dingtian would be enough. The Devil Queen said, now that Yang Dingtian has the Naga royalty sword soul, and has 3 saint-rank powerhouses by his side, he is no longer someone we can deal with. If not for our evil spirit bodies, we would have died without a burial place. The Ghost Emperor Wentian said, then, what about the person sitting on the throne of darkness? Didn't he reincarnate? With his strength, wouldn't capturing Yang Dingtian be as easy as flipping his hand? The Devil Queen shook her head and said, he has already disappeared. He left the Empire of Darkness and the World Extermination War to me, and went to look for the Nagaduga Shuang himself. And I have encountered an unprecedented failure and humiliation. Are you not going to help me? He has been sitting on the throne of darkness for a long time, and has completely become cold and ruthless. Are you going to be so cold? The Ghost Emperor Wentian looked at the Devil Queen's beautiful face and sighed. Okay, I will help you. Then, the Ghost Emperor Wentian sighed. Do you know how great the price I have to pay to agree to help you? The Devil Queen shook her head. The Ghost Emperor Wentian said, Dishibian and Wolingzi, because of the netherworld ghost fire in their bodies, can indeed be used as an energy medium to summon countless undead from the underworld empire to the human countries. However, it can only transfer undead with weaker cultivation than the 2 of them. However, the weak undead cannot deal with Yang Dingtian's army of martial arts. Therefore, if you want to transfer the saint rank undead, you have to let Wolingzi and Dishibian break through to the saint rank. As soon as he said this, the Devil Queen and Shura Vulture were shocked. The Ghost Emperor Wentian said, and if you want to let Wolingzi and Dishibian break through to the saint rank, do you know how many undead overlords and even undead monarchs I have to use? Demon Queen Dead Princess was shocked. She said, I will remember your kindness. Suddenly, the Ghost Emperor Wentian said, who knows that Dishibian has become my emissary? The Devil Queen said, only the evil warriors know. The Ghost Emperor Wentian said, then is it possible to leak it to Yang Dingtian? The Devil Queen said, impossible. All the evil warriors are in the Empire of Darkness and can't leave. The Ghost Emperor Wentian said, then we can change the method and directly capture Yang Dingtian. Yang Dingtian has always regarded Dishibian as his confidant, and the 2 of them even have a romantic relationship. I let Dishibian devour the energy essence of countless undead, allowing her cultivation to soar to far surpass Yang Dingtian. Then, I will send her to Yang Dingtian for a private meeting, and Yang Dingtian will definitely not be on guard against Dishibian. Therefore, Dishibian can easily capture Yang Dingtian, and then Yang Dingtian will be at our mercy. The Devil Queen nodded and said, but I still want to win the war of destruction and slaughter the human countries. The Ghost Emperor Wentian said, once Yang Dingtian is captured, there will be no Naga royalty sword soul. It will be easy for your remaining Legion of Doom to destroy the human countries. The Devil Queen's expression was complicated, and then she nodded and said, that's fine too. In the entire Netherworld Ghost City's Tong Tian Tower, only when Tian Ghost Emperor and Dishibian were left. That day, when you went to hunt for undead energy to become stronger and fell into my hands, you should have known this would happen. When Tian Ghost Emperor said slowly, Dishibian was silent. When Tian Ghost Emperor sighed and said, originally, I didn't plan to let you break through to the saint level so quickly, but with your 19 meridians and the same level of talent as Yang Dingtian, I believe that you can bear this incomparably powerful energy. Dishibian, I believe that you won't disappoint me. When Tian Ghost Emperor said slowly, then his face suddenly contorted. Then, his flaming arms suddenly stretched to 10,000 meters in the air. Suddenly, the entire underworld empire trembled violently. Then countless undead turned into streaks of energy, like countless meteors, flew into the sky from the underworld continent, and flew towards the netherworld ghost city. Countless undead energy, like countless stars, gathered in the sky above the netherworld ghost city, and then condensed into an incomparably bright and terrifying brilliance. Suddenly, it poured into Dishibian's body. Whoosh! In an instant, Dishibian's body burst out with a strange light. Shura Vulture asked. Queen Devil Queen said, "You don't need to know." At this time, Vulture's heart was burning with anxiety. However, she could easily put on an act in front of the Devil Queen. She discovered that Queen Devil Queen's scheming was much worse than Princely Ming's, let alone the Demon King Wentian's. Of course, it couldn't be said that she didn't have intelligence. After all, Queen Devil Queen was previously the hidden sex master, Nihility Piaoling. She was absolutely a straightforward and upright person with a temperament. Although the primordial evil spirit had turned her dark and evil, she still hadn't learned how to scheme and be sinister. Therefore, her temperament was still relatively straightforward and ruthless. Just now, when Dishibian broke through to the saint level, Shura Vulture immediately showed envy, jealousy and hatred. But in her heart, who knew how many thousands of circles had already spun in her mind? Dishibian had been controlled by the evil ways, and had become the spokesperson of the evil ways Ghost Emperor Wentian. He was a first-class evil spirit possessor, and was on the same level as Princess Mu Dan and young Master Dongli. Of course she was shocked by this news. However, she didn't have the impulse to tell Yang Dingtian at the first moment. But in the Underworld Empire, Ghost Emperor Wentian actually broke through to the saint level for Dishibian, and sent him to meet Yang Dingtian in private, and capture Yang Dingtian in one fell swoop. Yang Dingtian was definitely defenseless against Dishibian. Moreover, Dishibian's cultivation was much higher than Yang Dingtian's, so capturing him would be a piece of cake. Once Yang Dingtian fell into the hands of the evil ways again, the consequences would be unimaginable. Because Yang Dingtian had the Naga royalty sword spirit, as long as he woke up, he would be invincible. Therefore, evil ways wouldn't give him any chance to wake up. In fact, they didn't even have to use the greater space technique. They could directly let the Demon King Wentian possess Yang Dingtian's body, then mate with Naga Shuang, and directly share Naga Shuang's demigod body. Therefore, once Yang Dingtian fell into the hands of the evil ways, his soul and consciousness would be destroyed immediately, making the Naga royalty sword spirit useless. As for the greater space technique, it would take countless years to find it in Yang Dingtian's soul and memory fragments. Even if it couldn't be found, then perhaps it didn't matter. Previously, she was determined to obtain the greater space technique because of new Naga. But now, there was already a living Naga that could directly enjoy her demigod body. Therefore, the greater space technique might have to be placed second. The Azura Vulture's mind was filled with 10,000 thoughts. How should she pass this news to Yang Dingtian? It was impossible to tell him directly. She would definitely die. The Demon Queen Undead Concubine was right beside him, watching his every move. The Azura Spirit Vulture couldn't do anything. If she dared to do anything, she would definitely die. The Infernal Queen's dead concubine was definitely vicious and merciless. Moreover, if Dishibian's plan succeeded, Shura Vulture wouldn't be of much use for the time being. Although Vulture liked Yang Dingtian a lot, she still couldn't do it if she had to sacrifice her life for him. What should she do? What should she do? Shura Vulture's heart was about to melt. Suddenly, the Queen Devil Queen looked at Shura Vulture and said, "Vulture, don't you want to tell Yang Dingtian about Dishibian?" Shura Vulture shook her head and said, "Of course not. After Yang Dingtian fell into our hands, he was possessed by His Majesty the Demon King. Then he continued to be our husband. Isn't that the best ending? It's the most in our best interests." Vulture was right. She did think so. Yang Dingtian became the new Demon King, and then they would live together and control the world. This was the best ending. However, ever since the last time she was almost left behind by the Demon King, that disgusting and terrifying feeling had been rippling in her heart. What she wanted was for Yang Dingtian to become the new Demon King, and not for Yang Dingtian to be completely possessed by the Demon King. That way it would only be a shell of Yang Dingtian. Inside, it would still be the disgusting and terrifying Demon King. The Demon King who could kill her at any time. She Vulture still felt insecure. I know you are very smart, but I am afraid that if you do something stupid, we will all suffer losses. I have to do this. The Queen Devil Queen said. Shura Vulture was shocked and said, what are you going to do? The Queen Devil Queen gently patted the back of Shura Vulture's head. Suddenly Shura Vulture fainted. This time, she didn't have to be conflicted or hesitate. She didn't have to think about how to pass this fatal information to Yang Dingtian. The Queen Devil Queen brought Shura Vulture back to the Empire of Darkness. Then, the first thing she did was to seal off the entire Empire of Darkness. This was because Dishi Bien was a first-class evil spirit mystic. Thousands of evil spirit warriors present had seen him. Even though the entire Empire of Darkness was shrouded in dark matter, no one could leave without her wand. Furthermore, every evil spirit martial artist was absolutely loyal to their master. However, the Queen Devil Queen still stopped all patrols in the Empire of Darkness. Most of the people were tightly sealed in the Skirich Imperial capital and many dark castles. Recently, the Darkness Empire had sent a team to the East Parting Grassland to capture the remaining half-human race and bring them into the Darkness Empire. They would throw them into the refining and merging arrays to create a new Darkness army. In a short period of time, they had already captured millions of half-humans. They directly opened a huge crack in the Dongli grasslands. Then, the dark evil dragon flew out and captured any half-humans on the ground before bringing them back to the Empire of Darkness. Now, in order to keep Dishi Bien's plan to capture Yang Dingtian a secret, the Queen Devil Queen ordered the Empire of Darkness to be completely closed. Even the important task of capturing the half-humans was completely stopped. These millions of half-humans were only enough for the Dark Castle's refining and fusion arrays to work in less than 3 days. The number of Armageddon legions created would not exceed 10,000. In the Snakeman Empire, Yang Dingtian and the other two didn't find anything. Wuxia returned to the Taboo Continent's sea region to be with his mother Neru. The Mermaid Queen Violets returned to the Old Mermaid Empire and evacuated the remaining non-combat subjects of the Mermaid Empire. Of course, this evacuation required the use of a large number of ancient giant beasts. After the entire Mermaid Empire was evacuated, they would head to the sea region tens of thousands of miles away in the southwest to establish a new Mermaid Empire. The new Mermaid Empire was about 30,000 miles away from the southernmost tip of the southwest continent. Moreover, it was quite a distance away from the Devil's Sea region. Yang Dingtian returned to Cloud Sky City. He also had a very important task, which was to research a new electric weapon with the 100 warlocks. When he landed in Cloud Sky Castle, Jiao Liao immediately rushed forward. Sect Master, there are 3 things. Yang Dingtian, go ahead. First, the warlocks are already in the underground castle, waiting for your meeting. Yang Dingtian. Okay, I'll be there soon. Jiao Liao said. Second, the patrolling Demon Eagle warriors found that the Ecstasy River changed color a few days ago and became very blood red again. We went to take the water sample and found something else. Jiao Liao handed over a report. Yang Dingtian nodded and took a look. He couldn't help but shrink his eyes and his heart trembled. Jiao Liao said, Third Dishi Bien has returned. Yang Dingtian's artifact trembled and said, Dishi Bien has returned? Where did he come from? He came from the far west sea region, and is now in northwest Qin City with Qin Ji. Jiao Liao said, She will probably return to Cloud Sky City soon to report to you. She wants to watch Qin Ji's performance tonight. Yang Dingtian, I'll go see her. After the meeting with the warlocks, I'll immediately go to northwest Qin City. Yes, Jiao Liao said. Chapter 1001. Yang Dingtian had a lot of ideas about creating lightning-type weapons. Among them, The most powerful was naturally the collision of the chaotic attribute mysterious fire. In the chaotic world, there were countless demon nuclei and crystals, which were divided into positive energy and negative energy. As long as the energy attribute of these demon nuclei and crystals was transformed into the chaotic attribute, then the collision was carried out. In this way, an incomparably huge electric current could be generated. Nature's lightning was formed in this way. There was another principle. Every demon eel from the Mermaid Empire could release very powerful lightning-type energy. Unfortunately, although the first kind was the most powerful, the difficulty was too high. It was difficult to find a research direction to transform those crystals or demon nuclei into the chaotic attribute. As for the lightning-type attack of the demon eel, it was naturally very special. Not only the demon eel, but also a large number of lightning-type demon beasts led by the night owl beast. Of course, research in this area could be carried out, but for the same reason, the research in this area was too long, and it would take a very long time to produce results. And for the army of the undead that might come from hell, what the Council of Light needed was a large amount of lightning-type energy that was simple and directly obtainable. Therefore, the train of thought that Yang Dingtian had given was the simplest and most ordinary one. In fact, in the world of Earth, any junior high school student or high school student could do it. That was the simplest generator. Yang Dingtian walked into the underground secret room. Hundreds of warlocks were already waiting there, waiting for Yang Dingtian to hold a meeting. This group of warlocks could be said to have made great contributions to the Council of Light and the human countries. The most recent annihilation missile, the 6th generation of Crystal X formula, and the 7th generation of Crystal X formula that completely abandoned explosives, all came from the hands of this group of people. Every time, Yang Dingtian would only provide a direction and an inspiration. Next, this group of warlocks would study very deeply and thoroughly. Greetings, sect leader. Hundreds of warlocks in disheveled clothes stood up and saluted. Almost all of them had messy hair, sunken eye sockets thin and pale. Almost every warlock did not like to bathe, so the smell in the secret room was not good. Yang Dingtian said, "This time, I called you all here to research lightning-type offensive weapons, and we have to mass-produce them in a short period of time." As soon as this topic came out, all the warlocks were excited. This was because lightning energy was hailed as one of the 5 most mysterious types of energy in the chaos world. Therefore, possessing lightning talent had also become one of the representative characteristics of the hidden sect's disciples. Now Yang Dingtian actually said that he could produce electricity in batches. This was really shocking. Next, Yang Dingtian explained the first 2 research directions in detail. The first direction was to transform the crystals and demon cores into primal chaos, and then collide with them to generate a huge amount of electric energy. Once this direction was announced, all the warlocks became even more excited and couldn't wait to dive into the research. Sect Master, I know that you have the highest authority regarding the primal chaos attribute, a warlock leader said. Since you can primalize the mysterious fire, then please write a detailed paper on the primalization of the mysterious fire as our research direction. I feel that we will have results in about 10 years. Yang Dingtian took out a thick stack of parchment paper and said, regarding the mysterious fire's transformation into the primal chaos attribute, and even the primalization of mysterious chi, I have already analyzed it from the code of the divine realm. Then, I have written a very detailed article. After the warlock leader took it, he immediately treated it as if it was a treasure and wanted to start the research immediately. Yang Dingtian said, "No hurry, please listen to me about the second research direction." Then, Yang Dingtian said the second one, which was about the lightning attack method of the devil eel people, or the night owl demon beast. The warlock leader said, "Please give us a few specimens. We will rent one out for research on the devil eel people and the night owl demon beast. If we succeed, we may be able to create a lightning attack weapon that can move on its own and attack continuously." Yang Dingtian nodded and said, "Of course, I have already prepared the relevant specimens and will send them to your secret laboratory immediately." But regarding the lightning attack, I need to create it within a few months. And it needs to be mass-produced tens of thousands, or even hundreds of thousands. The warlock leader said in shock. Sect Master, this is impossible. This is completely impossible. This is different from the martial arts scroll you cultivate. This requires countless experiments, and cannot be completed in the meditation world. Yang Dingtian replied, I know. That's why I provided the third plan. You just have to expand and strengthen it. Then Yang Dingtian took out something. This was the most simple generator. On a crystal cylinder, there were dense metal wires wrapped around it. Inside the cylinder, there was a rotor and a long metal rod. On the metal shaft, there was a magnet fixed. Of course, there were natural magnets in the primal chaos world. Look carefully, Yang Dingtian said. Then, Yang Dingtian turned the metal shaft, and the rotation speed became faster and faster. Creak! Suddenly, a string of blue electric sparks was released from the discharge point. Suddenly, all the warlocks present were stunned. Their gazes towards Yang Dingtian were completely astonished. The most mysterious element of the Hand of Five Elements, the lightning element that came from the sky, was actually created so easily. Moreover, the structure of this plane was too simple. A warlock immediately stepped forward, turned the metal shaft himself, and then placed his hand on the discharge port. Then he turned it quickly. Creak! The electric current fiercely struck his body. Instantly, his frail body began to tremble violently. Then he said excitedly, It's lightning energy, it's definitely lightning energy. Then, all the warlocks gathered together to study this simple generator. Almost in a moment, this group of warlocks had thoroughly studied this device. This was a metal shaft, this was a magnet, and this was a special energy field formed by the coil. Then, the warlocks immediately figured out the principle of power generation. It was the kinetic energy of the rapid rotation, and the magnetic energy of the electromagnetic force combined and transformed into lightning energy. Then, countless warlocks came up with countless plans at the first moment. How to get the largest magnet with the greatest magnetic force. How to replace manual rotation with other mechanical devices. Just the kinetic energy of the rotation alone appeared as many as a dozen types. Using crystal formulas, using kerosene, and so on. Every plan was extremely mature. Then one by one the problems were submitted. How big could this huge lightning energy attack device be? And how much energy could it release? What materials should be used? Also, how to release the lightning attack and so on. At this time, Yang Dingtian almost had no right to speak. He only left a thin piece of paper to explain the principle of the entire generator, as well as the conductivity, resistance, voltage, current, and so on of all kinds of metals. Then he left, because there was no need for it for what happened next. As long as a door was open, within a few minutes, this group of warlocks would be able to study it very deeply, at least much deeper than Yang Dingtian. Yang Dingtian rode the demon eagle King Azu, and headed to the northwest Qin city at the fastest speed. In less than an hour, Yang Dingtian had already landed in the northwest Qin city. Where's Dishibian? Yang Dingtian asked. In the flowing water manor with Miss Gongsun, Duan Rian said. Of course, Third Lady Gongsun was Qin Ji, which Duan Rian knew. Duan Rian even knew Qin Ji's identity. However, she still called her Third Lady Gongsun. Yang Dingtian flew directly to the Flowing Water Manor. The Flowing Water Manor was a small manor outside the northwest Qin city. It was Yang Shishir's summer manor at that time. There was a small lake full of fruits that Yang Shishir liked at that time. Yang Dingtian flew to the Flowing Water Manor. At this time, Qin Ji was playing the zither, and Dishibian was sitting on the side, listening quietly and not expressing any opinions. Yang Dingtian gently entered the attic, and Dishibian turned to look at Yang Dingtian. And Qin Ji didn't even raise her head. Dishibian was still the same as before, beautiful, cold, and quiet. However, her figure seemed to be a little plump, and not completely without curves. Of course, there was still no way to compare with Qin Ji's devilish curves. Yang Dingtian didn't speak, quietly listening to Qin Ji finish playing a song. Although Yang Dingtian didn't know much about music, he still knew whether it was good or not. Qingji's playing level was really perfect. She could easily drag people into her music world. Her zither could easily evoke people's consciousness and soul. In short, although Yang Dingtian couldn't say for sure, her level was definitely at the level of a great artist. But this was normal. She was completely abnormally immersed in it. Many singers on earth had a pretentious saying, "I'm singing with my life." But when it came to Qingji, it was normal. She was indeed playing with her life and soul. The performance was over. Qingji slowly closed her beautiful eyes. She needed a long time to come out of her playing world. Yang Dingtian, did you notice? Dishibian's figure has become better. Are you drooling? Qingji said. Yang Dingtian was speechless. Just a moment ago, the artist was playing with her soul, but now she had become a female rogue. Suddenly, Dishibian's beautiful face blushed slightly. Then, Qingji puffed out her chest and stuck out her small waist. Her whole body became particularly curvaceous and seductive. But there's still no way to compare with me. Qingji said. Third Lady Gongsuan's body is really good. Every time I stand in front of the mirror, I have to be intoxicated for at least an hour. Plus, I exercise every day, so there are not many women whose figures are better than mine now. I'm destined to turn everyone upside down. Yang Dingtian said. You've already turned everyone upside down. Is that so? Qingji said. But I still have my virginity. I'll find a chance to auction it off. Yang Dingtian was speechless and didn't respond. Alright, this is my territory. If you want to flirt with each other, go find a place. I'm going to practice my music, Qingji said, and then continued to pluck the strings with her slender hands. Her fluctuating strings had a fixed rhythm, but it wasn't any music. It was as if she was using a fixed rhythm to adjust the strings. Then let's go, Yang Dingtian said to Dishibian. Okay, Dishibian said. Then, she got up and gently bounced her feet. Her delicate body flew out as light as a feather. As for Yang Dingtian, he was able to catch up easily. The two figures flew out of the manor for dozens of miles, as if they were weightless. Qingji stopped playing and fell to the ground. Her beautiful eyes were full of fear as she looked at the backs of Yang Dingtian and Dishibian. Yang Dingtian and Dishibian landed on a small sandy land to the west of Qin City. It was a sandy land, but not a desert. It was about a few hundred miles away from Qin City. Emperor Shi, how have you been? Yang Dingtian said with a smile. Yes, long time no see. I miss you very much. Dishibian said softly. Then he flicked his sleeve gently. A stream of saint-level energy suddenly shot toward Yang Dingtian's head. The sudden attack caught him off guard. Chapter 1002. This was in line with Dishibian's character. No greetings, no chatter, and directly attacked. Moreover, he directly attacked the head and wanted to knock down Yang Dingtian in an instant, so that he had no chance to release the Naga royalty sword spirit. But Yang Dingtian was faster. Before Dishibian attacked, he suddenly flashed tens of thousands of meters away. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Then two rays of light suddenly shot out from the desert. One was the mermaid Queen Violets, who was at the saint level. The other was also at the saint level, Neru. The two people, like lightning, attacked Dishibian from both sides. And Yang Dingtian suddenly released the Naga royalty sword spirit. 10,000 swords returned to origin. Suddenly countless huge golden sword rays shot out in an instant. However, they did not directly pierce through Dishibian's body. Instead, they completely enveloped the space of hundreds of meters around her. Countless sword rays spun quickly, forming an absolute energy-killing array. Dishibian originally wanted to capture Yang Dingtian, but in the end, she became a trap for Yang Dingtian to capture her. Dishibian floated in the energy-killing array of 10,000 swords returned to origin and asked slowly, Why? Yang Dingtian said, Can't you tell that when we left the flowing water manor, Qingji was tuning the zither strings? That is the special intelligence password of the Council of Light. Although she doesn't know what happened to you, she still told me that Dishibian has changed. Dishibian shook her head and said, Then, these two saint-level experts have been lying in ambush here for a long time. There must be other reasons. Yes, there must be other reasons. In fact, Yang Dingtian only knew one piece of information about Dishibian, a first-class evil spirit Dishibian. When did he find out about this top-secret information? A few hours ago. Jiao Liao provided him with 3 important things. First, the warlock was waiting for Yang Dingtian to hold a meeting. Secondly, there was a change in the Rapture River. Third, the return of Dishibian. The second one was about the changes in the Rapture River, and the water samples were taken. In the water, there was nothing but blood red. There was also a lot of blue powder, white powder, yellow powder, and golden powder. It didn't seem to be anything special. The powder came from different parts of the bodies of the Dark Owl Dragon, the Legion of Doom, and so on. If they didn't revive in time, and their energy dissipated, they would be completely smashed into smithereens. Then, after their bodies were crushed, the particles would be the most complete waste residue in this world, with no value at all. After they were thrown into the refining formation and fusion formation, they would be directly expelled into the Rapture River. However, the blue powder and the white powder were mixed together. The purple powder and the golden powder were mixed together. Furthermore, the 2 powders attracted each other, but did not fuse. There were only a dozen colors in this world. But when mixed together, there could be many combinations. If any color was mixed with white, there was only one meaning, and that was the people in the Tiando League. If any color was mixed with black, there was only one meaning, and that was the people in the evil ways. If blue and white were combined, it would be a person in the Tiando League who was ranked blue. Because the water of the Rapture River was red to begin with, this color was ruled out. Then, yellow would be the first, which represented Yang Dingtian. Blue would be the second, which represented the person with the second highest cultivation in the Tiando League. This color information system was created a few years ago. Now the ranking of cultivation had changed. However, in this system, the person with the second highest cultivation was Dishibian. There were dozens of people in the Tiando League in total, and they were all in this system. When 2 colors were not enough, a combination of 3 colors would be used. Once any color was combined with gold, there was only one meaning. Gold in this system represented evil spirits. Yellow ranked first. That was a first-class evil spirit. Of course, if 2 different types of golden powder were mixed together, it represented a primeval evil spirit. Of course, there was also the color of silver. Once silver appeared, it represented the meaning of kill. This color information system was originally used for energy birds, signal flares, and so on. Unexpectedly, someone had used it on the Rapture River. As for the 2 powders, the reason why they were attracted to each other, but did not fuse, was very simple. For example, if there was a fire element and an ice element, there would be absolute rejection. However, if there was a lightning element and an ice element, there would be mutual attraction. As for why the powders of the 2 colors would fuse together, it was even simpler. As long as they were both fire and ice elements, these energy powders would fuse together, even if they were of different colors. During this period of time, the refining array and fusion array of the Castle of Darkness were using the remaining half-humans of the Dongli grassland to create the Legion of Doom. As a result, someone had mixed in a large amount of prepared powder from the Legion of Doom. The refining formation and fusion formation would completely expel the powder from his body. Under Yang Dingtian's attention, there were winged cavalry warriors monitoring the exit of the Rapture River almost all the time. A few days before the Doomsday Battle, the Rapture River had already stopped flowing. This was because the Empire of Darkness had stopped creating the Legion of Doom. Once the Rapture River started flowing again, it would definitely attract the attention of the Council of Light's Watchers. And this time, the water of the Rapture River, in addition to the blood-red color, also had a strange light. Therefore, the winged cavalry immediately collected it and sent it to Cloud Sky City. At the level of the Jiao Liao, she could not figure out what was inside. At first glance, Yang Dingtian only felt that it was strange, although he knew the meaning of the combination of these colors. However, these colors were not transmitted through regular intelligence channels. such as energy birds and signal flares. Instead, they were transmitted through the Rapture River. It was very likely that it was just an accident. However, another piece of news from the Jiaoliao was that Dishi Bian had returned. And when these colors were combined, it was the Tiando League, Dishi Bian, a first-class evil spirit. Moreover, these two elements did not repel each other. Instead, they attracted each other. Therefore, it was immediately noticed by Yang Dingtian. In addition, Dongli had previously revealed that he had a very short interaction with Dishi Bian. Moreover, Dishi Bian had been missing for a long time. Therefore, it was enough to make a guess. This information could be deciphered. First-class evil spirit Dishi Bian. That's right. There was Yang Dingtian's spy among the evil spirit warriors. Previously, this spy almost never passed on any information. Moreover, most of them might not be able to pass on or know the most top-secret information. For example, last time, when Yang Dingtian was captured, Li Ming invited Yang Dingtian to attend the wedding. The level of this information was too high, and this spy was not qualified to know. By the time this person found out, Yang Dingtian had already fallen into the hands of the demon king Wentian. And this time, the devil queen recklessly allowed Dishi Bian to reveal his true identity in front of all the evil spirit warriors. This spy did not know that Dishi Bian wanted to capture Yang Dingtian, but he felt that this information was very, very important, so he did everything he could to pass it on. In fact, this person had been continuously passing on the information for nearly 3 days. As for the change in the Rapture River, this matter did not seem to be of a high level, so it took nearly 3 days for it to reach Yang Dingtian's hands. Moreover, it was also a coincidence that Yang Dingtian had returned to Cloud Sky City. Otherwise, this information might have been delayed forever. At this moment in the Empire of Darkness, the Azura Spirit Vulture fell into a painful torment. Dishi Bian's plan to trick Yang Dingtian was obviously already in progress, and it would basically succeed. Shura Vulture had no choice but to watch this happen. Once Yang Dingtian was possessed, then it would be humiliated by the disgusting the Demon King Wentian every day. Shura Vulture shuddered. Dishi Bian said, "Only the Devil Queen and Shura Vulture know that I'm here to capture you." The Devil Queen would never betray me, so the only one she would betray is Shura Vulture. Isn't she afraid of death? Yang Dingtian said, "That's not important. What's important is, are you going to surrender?" Dishi Bian narrowed her eyes and said, "2 saint-level powerhouses and a Naga royalty sword soul. It seems that I don't have any hope." Yang Dingtian said, "No matter what, your body is Dishi Bian's. So, we won't hurt you. We'll just imprison you in a place where evil ways can't find you. Until I find a way to destroy the evil spirits, I'll release you." Dishi Bian's mouth turned cold and said, "I'm afraid it won't be that easy for you to keep me here." Her eyes narrowed. Whoosh! In an instant her body split apart violently. An evil spirit avatar and a physical avatar. Whoosh! Then, a soul avatar suddenly jumped out. This was the terrifying ability of the Netherworld Ghost Fire. The soul could directly leave the body. Whoosh 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 whoosh. Her soul doppelganger suddenly shot towards the Mermaid Queen. In an instant, her soul directly entered the body of the Mermaid Queen Violets. Although Violet's cultivation was very strong, Dishi Bian had devoured countless souls and was strengthened by the soul-gathering shadow. So in terms of soul power, she was completely inferior to Dishi Bian. In an instant, she temporarily lost control of her body. An incomparably powerful soul power instantly controlled Violet's body and fiercely attacked Neru. "Madam, who are you? Why is there another saint-level powerhouse by Yang Dingtian's side?" Dishi Bian sneered. As Dishi Bian spoke, her evil spirit avatar also fiercely attacked Neru. As for her physical body, it was still controlled by her soul consciousness, and also attacked in that direction. Originally, it was 2 saint-level powerhouses besieging Dishi Bian. In the end, it was forcefully turned into a situation where 3 powerhouses besieged Neru. This Dishi Bian, after possessing a first-class evil spirit and devouring countless undead energy essences, had actually become so terrifying. Although Neru was powerful and could withstand the siege of 3 saint-level energy, she was helpless against Dishi Bian. However, they couldn't do anything to Dishi Bian. They were even at a disadvantage. Yang Dingtian was at his wits' end. He originally didn't want to hurt Dishi Bian's body, but now he had no choice but to attack. 10,000 swords returned to sect. Whoosh 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 whoosh. Suddenly, countless Naga royalty sword souls shot towards Dishi Bian's body. Chapter 1003. All the Naga royalty sword souls attacked Dishi Bian alone. They could only attack Dishi Bian's body, because attacking the evil spirit avatar was useless. And her soul had occupied the body of the mermaid queen Violets. The mermaid queen did not have the evil spirit energy, nor did she have an immortal body. Whoosh 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 whoosh. The Naga royalty sword soul was indeed incomparably powerful. In an instant, Dishi Bian's body was reduced to ashes. Her incomparably elegant and beautiful body directly shattered, turning into nothingness. Only the sea of qi, xian meridians, brain, and heart that were protected by the first-class evil spirit were left in her body. After her body was destroyed, Dishi Bian's evil spirit avatar had no choice but to shrink back into her body. Even her soul avatar had no choice but to re-enter her body. Whoosh! Then, Dishi Bian's soul and evil spirit avatar turned into a stream of light and quickly escaped. At the same time, her beautiful and moving body rapidly regrew. The mermaid queen, who had escaped, and Nero quickly chased after her. Yang Dingtian's Naga royalty sword soul flew forward at lightning speed. Countless sword lights rotated, and once again surrounded Dishi Bian tightly. Then the encirclement became smaller and smaller, until it was completely airtight. Just like that, Yang Dingtian controlled the sword soul energy shield and moved quickly, wanting to completely imprison her somewhere. Yang Dingtian thought of many places. The safest place was, of course, to use spatial techniques and directly throw her into another plane. However, the only way was to tear space. Evil ways could enter, so this method was not safe. Another place was to use the primeval Naga's eye gem to melt open a dark material cave. Then throw Dishi Bian in, and let the dark material wrap around her. This was just like Wu Yoming's suicide, but Yang Dingtian could not do this. After all, Dishi Bian was her right-hand man, and she was only being controlled now. What Yang Dingtian wanted to do was to save her, not destroy her. In the end, Yang Dingtian only had one way, and that was to imprison her at the bottom of the Lee Water Villa. There was a 10,000-year-old phantom spirit demoness there, frozen to the extreme. Yang Dingtian directly sank Dishi Bian to the bottom of the lake, completely frozen, never to wake up. And she had a first-class evil spirit, so she could not die. However, at this moment, the energy shield formed by the Naga royal sword soul suddenly trembled violently. Boom! Then, an incomparably powerful energy suddenly exploded from within. Countless rays of light shot out from within. The sword soul energy shield was, after all, an energy shield formed by countless rotating sword lights. There were still gaps between them. Of course, almost no one could get out of these gaps. But light energy could. Countless energy rays shot out from the gaps. Then, outside the energy shield, the countless energy rays condensed again, and turned into a Dishi Bian. A Dishi Bian without a physical body. Dishi Bian once again took the initiative to abandon her physical body. She did not even restore her physical body. She just coldly looked at Yang Dingtian's face and said, "Yang Dingtian, you have a spy in the Empire of Darkness, don't you?" "Of course, I don't care about this," Dishi Bian said coldly. "You keep saying that you want to save Dongfang Bingling and Nihility Piaoling. But in the end, not only did you not save these two people, but you also lost a Dishi Bian. Yes, my plan has failed. However, this will bring an even greater disaster to your human kingdom." Dishi Bian's eyes turned into the flames of an evil spirit, and her whole body turned into the light of an undead. Soon, you will see billions of undead enter the human world. The entire human kingdom will become a paradise for the undead. At that time, the entire human kingdom will face the real end of the world, and the entire continent will become a real hell. Then, Dishibian instantly turned into countless energy and disappeared into the air. Then, in the blink of an eye, she disappeared without a trace. Yang Dingtian, the mermaid queen, and Nera stood in place and looked in the direction where Dishibian disappeared. 2 saint-level powerhouses, 1 saint-level powerhouse, and an extremely powerful Naga royalty sword soul. And even with the intention of scheming, they could not keep Dishibian. When the undead and evil spirits, these 2 terrifying energies, were gathered together, it was too terrifying and too heaven-defying. The mermaid queen Violet said, "Abandon your fantasies and prepare for a new war of destruction. The astronomical number of undead will become the new Legion of Doom." Yang Dingtian looked at Neru and said, "Madam, there is a huge energy barrier between the Underworld Empire and the human kingdom that the undead cannot cross. May I ask, is there any way to let the undead come to the human world?" Nera thought for a while and said, "I believe you can think of it. There is a kind of person who has died once but never dies. She is regarded as the same kind in the Underworld Empire. But when she comes to the human world, she is a human. Only they can travel between the human kingdom and the Underworld Empire." Yang Dingtian immediately thought of Dishibian and Wulingzi. These 2 people had part of the Netherworld ghost fire. Could it be that the Underworld Empire could use these 2 people as an energy medium to transport countless undead to the human kingdom? If that was the case, then what role would the Shura Vulture play? Dishibian returned to the Underworld Empire at the fastest speed and entered the Netherworld Ghost City. In the Tower of Babel, a ball of Netherworld ghost fire suddenly ignited and turned into a huge figure. "Why are you alone? Have you completed your mission?" Ghost Emperor Wentian said. "No, I have failed." Dishibian said. "Not only did I not catch Yang Dingtian, but I fell into his trap. He already knew about my background and sent 2 saint-level experts to ambush me." Ghost Emperor Wentian said angrily, "Did the Empire of Darkness leak the news?" Dishibian said, "It must be. In the end, I had to turn myself into thousands of threads and shatter my body again and again before I could escape. You should know how serious the consequences of doing this are. This means that my body has completely changed. It is no longer a complete human body." Ghost Emperor Wentian said angrily, "Go to the Empire of Darkness and find the Queen Devil Queen. You must drag this spy out, strip him of his evil spirit, and tear him to pieces." Dishibian said, "The plan to capture Yang Dingtian has failed. Then, will you agree to the Devil Queen's request? Let countless undead enter the human countries? Start the second war of extinction?" Ghost Emperor Wentian was silent for a long time, and then said slowly, "Do I have a choice? But let Piaoling catch that spy first." Dishibian flew to the sky above Sky Demon City at the fastest speed. The Queen Devil Queen was waiting here. If Dishibian captured Yang Dingtian, he would directly bring him to the Empire of Darkness. Seeing Dishibian come alone, the Queen Devil Queen said doubtfully, "You failed?" Dishibian said coldly, "Yes, I failed." Queen Devil Queen said, "Why? You should have caught him easily." Yang Dingtian trusted Dishibian a lot. Dishibian said, "Because my background has been exposed. Yang Dingtian set a trap for me and waited for me to fall into it. If I hadn't destroyed my body again and again, I would have been captured by him." "Exposed? Impossible," Queen Devil Queen said in surprise. "Only 3 people know about the whole plan. You, me, and Shura Vulture. After leaving the Underworld Empire, I knocked her out immediately. Even if she wanted to betray you, she didn't have any chance." Dishibian said, "A few days ago, I took off my mask in front of all the evil warriors and revealed my true face. Moreover, you directly said that I was the Netherworld Ghost Emperor's envoy. So there was Yang Dingtian's spy among your evil warriors." "Impossible," Queen Devil Queen said. "A few days after you revealed your true face, all the evil warriors were in the Empire of Darkness. No one could leave, so it was impossible for anyone to pass the news to Yang Dingtian." Dishibian said, "The Netherworld Ghost Emperor said that if we want to start the next Armageddon War, we have to find this spy first and cut him into pieces before we talk about anything else." Queen Devil Queen narrowed her eyes and said, "If there is really such a spy, even if you don't say it, I will definitely make this person beg for death." Then, Devil Queen used her magic staff to melt the dark matter and create a deep passage. She brought Dishi Bien and flew into the Empire of Darkness. Skirich Imperial capital. All the evil warriors, including those without evil energy, such as Dugu Xiao and Walingzi, were in the Celestial Palace. The Devil Empress Wang Ji stood below the throne and spoke unhurriedly. "We have just executed a plan, which is to let the Ghost Emperor's envoy, Di Shibian, capture Yang Dingtian. However, our plan failed." Hearing this, Crown Prince Li Ming frowned slightly. When Shura Vulture heard this, she was overjoyed. She could not even suppress the joy in her eyes. The schemes of the infernal Queen Undead Concubine were truly not brilliant. Devil Queen continued, because Dishi Bien's identity was exposed. Yang Dingtian was on guard, so he set a trap in advance. As a result, Dishi Bien almost could not return, and Dishi Bien's identity was only known to all of you present. Therefore, we have a traitor in front of everyone. This person used a very confidential channel to tell Yang Dingtian about Dishi Bien's identity. When these words came out, everyone was shocked. They looked at each other in disbelief. The evil spirit warriors should be the most loyal group of people. With an evil spirit, in addition to possessing powerful strength, they also had an immortal body. With this kind of power, anyone would be loyal. Queen Devil Queen said, "Then may I ask, who is this traitor? Who is the spy that Yang Dingtian left among us?" In the entire hall, thousands of evil warriors were silent. Queen Devil Queen said, "Don't tell me, no one wants to tell me anything? Anyone can report to me. Even the slightest suspicion is fine." Suddenly, Qin Wancho's wife Qiu Ruhan stepped forward and said, "Devil Queen, I know who this traitor is." When these words came out, everyone's eyes focused on her. Chapter 1004. Queen Devil Queen glanced at Qiu Ruhan and said, "You say it." Qiu Ruhan pointed at Lung Ao and said, "It's him." Lung Ao's expression changed dramatically and said, You're slandering me." Queen Devil Queen glanced at Lung Ao, but it was no different from looking at an ant. Then she said indifferently, "Qiu Ruhan, do you have any evidence?" Qiu Ruhan said, "First of all, Lung Ao, you're from the Yinyang school, and you don't have any grudges with Yang Dingtian. Your father is also greatly indebted to Yang Dingtian, and Yang Dingtian thinks highly of you. If I remember correctly, Yang Dingtian insisted on adding your name to a certain big list, and he personally came to the Yinyang school to pick you up." Lung Ao laughed and said, What can this prove?" Qiu Ruhan said, Yang Dingtian, Shimanju, and Yang Zheng all have deep grudges against each other. As for you, I don't see any motive for you to join the Temple of Annihilation." Lung Ao said, "I hate Yang Dingtian, is that enough? He's just a clown. What right does he have to become the leader of the Tiando League? What right does Dongfang Minmi have to betroth junior sister Bingling to him? What right does Bingling have to marry him? Since I can't defeat him through normal means, I'll find another way." Qiu Ruhan said, "Other than this reason, do you join the Temple of Annihilation because of Dongfang Bingling?" Lung Ao said, "Of course, junior sister Bingling is the lover of my dreams. Even if she goes to hell, I'll follow her." After he finished speaking, he coldly and arrogantly looked towards Peony, his gaze incomparably affectionate. Qiu Ruhan said, "That's even more ridiculous. Your father, Lung Qingchen, died at the hands of Princess Mudan. The Jade of Reflection has already recorded this scene, and I believe you've seen it more than once. So, you joined the evil ways for revenge. It's a conspiracy that you and Yang Dingtian came up with." Lung Ao said loudly, "My father died at the hands of Yang Dingtian, not junior sister Bingling. If it wasn't for Yang Dingtian, how would my father die?" Queen Devil Queen said, "Qiu Ruhan, if that's all, the evidence isn't enough." Qiu Ruhan said, "Lung Ao, when Dishi Bien revealed his true face in front of all of us, where did you go?" Lung Ao's expression changed slightly. I went to the Naga Empire, what's wrong? I was just following the Devil Queen's orders, to bring the Dark Dragon clan, to capture the Naga Empire's half-human clan, to create the Legion of Doom. Don't tell me you're questioning Her Majesty Devil Queen? Prince Li Ming cursed in his heart. This Queen Devil Queen wasn't serious enough. After Dishi Bian revealed his true face, they should have immediately shut down the Empire of Darkness. In the end, they only thought of this after a few hours, and completely shut down the Empire of Darkness. At that time, it was Lung Ao's turn to lead the Dark Dragon clan, to capture the Naga Empire's half-human clan. Qiu Ruhan said, "That's right, it was your turn." But what's more coincidental was that Yang Dingtian also went to the Naga Empire that day. Lung Ao's expression changed greatly. He felt like he couldn't clear his name, even if he jumped into the Yellow River. He knelt down and said, "Your Majesty Devil Queen, at that time, I was only following your orders to go to the Naga Empire to capture the half-human clan. I didn't know that Yang Dingtian also went to the Naga Empire, and I didn't even meet him. Please understand, I'm loyal and devoted to the Temple of Annihilation. I only want to borrow the power of the temple one day to trample Yang Dingtian under my feet, and never be able to rise again. I really don't have any motive to betray you," Qiu Ruhan said. But after the Dishi Bian emissary revealed his true face, "You were the only one who left the Empire of Darkness. So if you're not a spy, who is?" Lung Ao said in shock. "Devil Queen, I request a spirit wizard to explore my brain and prove my innocence." Just like the Shura vulture, he couldn't have evil energy in his body. Because he was a celestial spirit master, he had extremely strict requirements for spirit energy. And the soul and brain of the best spirit masters couldn't be contaminated. Devil Queen said, "The spirit masters who can explore the brain are in the Little Western Paradise. But the door to the human kingdom is now blocked by Yang Dingtian. There's no way to find a spirit master." Lung Ao kowtowed and said, "Then I can wait. You can imprison me until the day I can prove my innocence." Devil Queen looked at Dishi Bian and said, "What do you think? You have the biggest say in this matter." Dishi Bian said, "It seems that he's almost the only suspect." "I'm not." Lung Ao changed his voice and roared, "I'm innocent." Devil Queen frowned. In fact, from the bottom of her heart, she didn't believe that Lung Ao was the spy traitor. She even felt that there was no traitor. It should be that Dongli had let it slip before, and aroused Yang Dingtian's suspicion. However, the most important thing now was to appease Dishi Bian's anger, turn over this page, and then immediately start the second wave of the War of Destruction, letting countless undead enter the human world. As for the death of Lung Ao, it didn't matter at all. Deprive him of his second-class evil spirit, and give it to another person. Devil Queen said to Princess Mudan. "Mudan, Lung Ao is your man, what do you think?" Princess Mudan said indifferently, "Me? It doesn't matter." As soon as these words came out, it was like a thunderbolt to Lung Ao. He looked at Princess Mudan in disbelief. This woman was his dream lover, the fairy Dongfang Bingling in his heart. At that time, she personally found him, and gave him a second-class evil spirit. Lung Ao always thought that this was a kind of affection. Although Mudan gave 5 people second-class evil spirits, he felt that he was different, he was special. More or less, Mudan had some special feelings for him. Now when it was time to decide his life and death, the other party actually said, "I don't care." It was as if he was a fly, an ant, and his life had no weight at all. How could this be? How could this be? Lung Ao's whole body was cold, and he collapsed to the ground. Devil Queen said, "Li Ming, what do you think?" Prince Li Ming frowned and said, "It's better to kill by mistake than to let go." Devil Queen said again, "Dongli, what do you think?" Dongli felt that Dishi Bian leaked the secret because of him, and he couldn't help but feel a little guilty. Now that there was someone to take the blame, of course, it couldn't be better. Suddenly he sneered and said, "I also find it strange that Lung Ao joined the lookout. He is completely upright, and has nothing to do with our lookout before. So I think he is the betrayer. Devil Queen looked at Shura Vulture and said, Vulture, although you are not a first-class evil spirit, you have the right to speak as one of the devil concubines. Kill him, cut him into pieces. Vulture said resolutely. Vulture hated Lung Ao because he always had a cold and arrogant look on his face, because he was Dongfeng Bingling's man. His attitude towards Vulture was also very bad. Of course, as for whether he was Yang Dingtian's spy or not, actually, she didn't really care. Moreover, she felt that he probably wasn't. The reason was very simple. He and Yang Dingtian were love rivals. She felt that love rivals couldn't be friends. Just like that, Lung Ao's fate was decided. He completely collapsed to the ground, looking at all this in disbelief. He had abandoned the glory of being the eldest disciple of Yin Yang school, and entered the evil ways. He actually ended up like this. He really couldn't accept it. He hadn't seen Yang Dingtian's tragic end yet. He hadn't even stepped on Yang Dingtian's foot. How could he die just like that? Suddenly he knelt on the ground and kowtowed desperately. Devil Queen, I am innocent, I am innocent. You gave me a chance, I will prove myself. I will immediately kill Yang Dingtian's wife, and immediately kill Yang Dingtian's son. I will prove that I am innocent, Except for Dishi Bian, who was indifferent, almost all of the few powerful people on the scene believed that Lung Ao was indeed innocent. The real leak was Dongli. However, Dongli was one of the Demon King's adopted sons, so he couldn't do anything to him. So it was better to cut the Gordian knot and kill him directly. The Devil Queen said, Mudan, he is your man. Do it. Yes. Mudan said. Mudan stretched out her hand and condensed a first-class evil spirit tree. Above them, there were 5 huge tree branches, and their faces were reflected on the branches. Among them, one of the faces was Lung Ao's. At this moment he was in incomparable pain and fear. Mudan gently pinched and turned. Suddenly, Lung Ao's face was extinguished, and this second-class evil spirit was transferred to the first third-class evil spirit under Lung Ao. Suddenly, that person couldn't believe that such a huge meat pie had fallen on his head. He immediately knelt down and shouted desperately in ecstasy. Lung Ao was still kowtowing and bleeding, and hissed, I will kill Yang Dingtian's son to prove my innocence. Princess Mudan stretched out her hand and directly penetrated Lung Ao's chest, and then pulled the first-class evil spirit out of his body. From his sea of qi, from his xian veins, from his brain, and from his heart. Lung Ao looked at his broken chest and Peony's blood-drenched jade-like hands. He immediately let out a shocking scream. He lost his second-class evil spirit. He lost his second-class evil spirit. Mudan suddenly injected the second-class evil spirit's energy directly into the lucky person, who was about to faint from ecstasy. Suddenly, the second-class evil spirit changed owners. At this time Lung Ao was completely crazy. Suddenly he screamed and roared. You bunch of beasts, you blind beasts. I won't let you go even if I die. You all deserve to be torn to pieces by Yang Dingtian. Queen Devil Queen said to Dishi Bian, You do it. Dishi Bian pulled out his sword, stepped up and fiercely hacked down. I'm not willing. Before Lung Ao's voice faded, his whole head was directly cut off. When he rolled on the ground, his face was still ferocious, and his eyes were wide open. He died with grievances. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.